council.
I'll make a motion for John Price, James Kenny, and Glenn Anderson as a block.
I have a motion from Vice President Blank. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion. Councilmember Shockley.
I would like to be able to discuss more about planning and zoning in the future, and how these boards are set up in terms and term limits. Since coming on the council, I've noticed that these two boards have a lot more power than the elected officials in town, as far as, when people ask me about a Family Dollar, for instance, I have the understanding that if it's zoned for it, it's going to go there, but it never passes through the town council necessarily. So understanding how powerful these boards are, I would like there to be a lot more discussion as far as criteria to be on the board, and possibly thinking about term limits, even though I do agree with the members who stated it takes a little while to get an understanding for how these boards work. Even board training, what we do currently and what we might want to do in the future to help the men and women on these boards make better decisions.
I'd be open to that if you want to take a look at how it's written up in the charter and maybe provide some suggestions to administration to consider it on an agenda. I'd be totally open to that. I agree. Further discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Can we have slightly more discussion? I apologize.
Oh,
Or are we
sorry.
too late?
We've already gone down the road of a vote.
Okay, I apologize.
I'm sorry. The motion was to take it as a block. So
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Um,
I'll make a motion to approve block.
motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilman Pasqua. Discussion. Councilman Shockley.
I'm glad that each of the members mentioned how long they've been on the board. Because I want to make sure that under our current rules, where there isn't a term limit, we don't keep putting the same people on boards time after time after time, but instead make sure that we're switching some people out on occasion. I think, as I mentioned, term limits might really help with that, to make sure we're getting new voices on such important committees. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thanks. I personally am going to vote in favor of this block. I think that given the boom we've seen in development in this town and the learning curve that's required to be a part of the planning commission and the commitment, a 6-year commitment for each term, I think it's important to keep that that background and that institutional knowledge, and to continue to gel together as a group, because I think I know you don't always vote together on a planning commission, but you kind of become a team. You're really entrenched together in something that's, as Councilmember Shockley stated, very serious and a heavily weighted function of the town. Councilmember Shockley.
I don't know if we have any representation from District 3 on planning. I don't know if anyone would know. Yes. I appreciate that information.
Yeah, come up, please, Ron. State your name and address for the record. Thanks.
Ron Flynn, 21 Calvintown Road, acting chairman of the planning board. We actually have mandated training from the state now. Some of us already took a 3-hour course on that. So I just wanted to make sure you knew there is training.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Councilman Pasqua.
What is the training exactly?
It's really to go over the different steps, like the plan unit development, the comp permits, affordable housing. They touch base a little bit on ethics. So really it's the procedure, the pre-application, the master plan, the preliminary, the final. So they went over a lot of everything. It was like a beginner course. But it's good to have everybody take it.
Is there any like CEUs or anything that you have to do on a regular basis, yearly basis?
That's
for-
mandatory every year.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
So every year I would hope there will be a different aspect of planning. And they touched on zoning also. It's a combination of zoning and planning. Anybody else?
Good to know. Thank you
Thank
for
you
that.
very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Flynn.
Just a comment.
Solicitor Angel?
I've had an opportunity to work with this board and to listen to the chairman on any number of issues. I can tell you my experience that whether it's zoning or planning, continuity is very important. I understand the thought process behind making sure that it's diverse in terms of district representation. That's more of a political decision. But I can speak to the institutional knowledge of this planning board from what I've seen. The commitment of time that they spend, Saturday site visits, things of that nature. I have a fair amount of interaction with the solicitor that's assigned to that board on a regular basis, as well as the board itself. And I can tell you that this is a very committed board. I've seen boards in other cities and towns, and for the attorneys listening, that they shake their heads and agree privately. There is a tendency in other places to make political decisions. I'm really struck by the fact that I've not seen that here. There's an adherence to the law. There's a good compass in terms of doing the right thing. And in my own observation of things in today's day and age, it's tough to find a good compass. And your zoning board is the same way. I mean, I was here 3 days and I sat with the zoning board of review. They did an excellent job. They know your code of ordinances, they know the comprehensive plan, and they have an eye out in both cases, I think, for what's best for the town. And certainly the reporting relationship that I have with the assistant solicitor would tell me otherwise if that were not the case. So I just thought I'd put in the 2 cents here.
Vice President LeBlanc?
If I could just add to the solicitor's comments. I've attended planning commission meetings. I've witnessed the professionalism of the board. I feel like they work very well together. Clearly, 3 of them want to seek reappointment. They are committed. And I do know that this board appreciates public comment. They allow it whenever possible. So those are the reasons why I had voted for the block.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Madam Clerk, can you please connect with Mr. Sassy and Mr. Pelletier about other openings that they might be interested in? We have plenty of them on other boards. Thank you. Next up, Sewer Subcommittee. We have multiple openings, but we had one applicant. Mr. Snow, if you'd like to come up, just introduce yourself. State your name and address for the record.
Kevin Snow, 36 Edward Street.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we have you down here for, you applied for the Sewer Subcommittee and Sewer Assessment Board of Review.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
for both. I've lived in Coventry my entire life. I believe District 1 may be the only district I haven't lived in. I grew up right on Lake Tioga, area that desperately needed sewers. I currently live on Edward Street, an area that does not need sewers, and it would cost the town absolutely astronomical figure. Great, being that the whole neighborhood was built on rock, and I fought against previous council and sewer subcommittee. And so I believe that there's areas that don't need it and that do need it. And my only expertise is I've worked with people my whole life. I've worked in the food business for 20 years and I've been delivering mail for close to 20. I talk with people, everybody all day long. And I will listen to anybody and everybody. And I just want to make sure that this town seems to be heading in the right direction. And I just like to do my part to help keep it that way, I guess.
Great, thanks. Vice President LeBlanc.
Mr. Snow, you applied for 2 different boards. a sewer subcommittee, sorry, and the sewer assessment board. Do you have time for both?
I do.
Thanks.
Councilmember Shockley.
I think this would be more of a question from, for Councilmember LeBlanc, because you've been on these boards. Is being on both recommended? Do you see any issues with that or?
They typically are on both
Oh,
the
okay.
members of these.
Perfect.
There's actually overlap right now. There's only 2 members on the sewer assessment board, and those 2 members are also on sewer subcommittee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further questions from members of the council? Do I hear a motion
I'll
to
make a motion to appoint, should we do individually?
do individual?
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Snow to the sewer subcommittee.
I'll second it.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Snow to the sewer assessment board of review.
I'll second it.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to report of the town manager. Manager Parrillo, the floor is yours for your FY24 budget address. Council members. Mr. Parrillo sent us the packet via email yesterday.
Good evening, members of the town council, Solicitor Angel, all department directors in attendance, and citizens and business owners of Coventry. First, I'd like to thank all of our town employees for their dedication every day on behalf of our residents and for welcoming me to Coventry with a smile and an offer to help. It's been a great transition to this point. Regarding the budget, I'm grateful to all the department directors for their cooperation, assistance, and commitment in helping build this budget. A special thanks to Interim Finance Director Savetti for his dedication and countless hours of research over the last month, trying to piece together what was left behind and compose a cohesive financial picture that we can use to assemble what I'm presenting this evening. Before I get to the PowerPoint presentation, I wanted to lay out a few priorities for the town that I've seen in my whole 3 weeks here, from a very short window. But these are the things that I think we need to go to do moving forward. And I've kind of labeled it the foundation for the future. Number one is financial stability. It is paramount that we get our financial house in order. This is the basis for everything we need to do going forward. It begins with the 22 audit, the 23 audit, and making those deadlines of December 31st. So we are in coordination with the Auditor General and we are no longer an outlier. We have a lot of outstanding issues with financial implications that need to be addressed, from negotiations with our police department in Council 94 to new teacher and staff contracts and to a major decision on a commitment to bond $80 million for schools. The second priority I see is public safety. Everyone needs to feel safe and secure in their home, at school, and in their place of business. I am committed to working with the Coventry Police and the IBPO to provide them the staffing, resources, equipment, and support they need to be the gatekeepers of our community. Number three, education. With our school department making up close to 70% of this town's budget, it is imperative that we provide the taxpayer an affordable and diverse quality education to keep all of our students here in Coventry and not out of district. We must provide opportunities to all of our students, whether they excel in the classroom, on the court, or in the kitchen, garage, or welding shop. We need the school to work with the town as partners and manage their onerous budget. A child's education is crucial to their future, but it needs to be provided in a financially responsible manner. Number four, infrastructure. We need to invest in our roads and sidewalks immediately. There hasn't been a significant street paving program in Coventry since 2016. We have done the homework by having the street condition study done a couple of years ago, which has identified all the streets in all the districts that are the worst and need immediate attention. We need to make the financial commitment to get that done immediately. Yesterday, I was at a press conference for a road and bridge program that the state is going to be putting forth, which should guarantee us some seed money of about $400,000 to get this program going. Sewer program. The future of our sewer program begins with a commitment to fund the repairs and replacement of our gatehouses, pump stations, and other framework to increase our capacity. We can start this program and identify what the areas that will be later on discussed tonight by Fuss and O'Neill in their presentation. These targeted areas will protect the watershed and promote long-term planning for potential commercial investment, which will also stimulate economic development that will benefit all of Coventry. I want Coventry to be the best place to live, work, and raise a family in this state. So with that said, here is the presentation and the slides. As you can see on the screen, I'm going to just kind of go page by page. I am proposing a 3.81% increase to the levy. That incorporates an approximately $2.9 million increase from 114 million to close to 117 million. In addition to that, another highlight of that is an increase of 32.7% in our state aid, including a $2.634 million in the motor vehicle phase out. We also have received an increase in state education of $2,021,965. I will go into the school budget later on as to what they were asking for. However, at this point, I just wanted to note that I am proposing an increase in their appropriation of $500,000. One of the large increases in fees, expenses for the town is our resource recovery bill, which has increased almost $117,000 this upcoming year. When it comes to the town side, staffing highlights, we've eliminated and repurposed the deputy finance director position and the deputy treasurer position. So those two spots are going to be eliminated. What I am proposing in place of that is to hire another finance position beginning January 1st of 2024. That position would be more of a purchasing position who would really handle all RFPs and really centralize all the information that town currently does in separate departments. I'm also including a full-time engineer beginning July 1st to really bolster that department. Right now, we have Joe Levesque there as the engineer. He's kind of flying solo, but we really see a need in engineering to bring that second person in and do a lot of the stuff that we're outsourcing now in-house to save some money. And the third full-time employee will be in canvassing. Ms. Anderson is retiring at the end of 24. So I'd like to get a full-time person in there to start that transition sooner rather than later. And lastly, I know Mr. Pimentel did a great presentation regarding an EDC person, full-time person. Unfortunately, I don't see how we can afford that in the current budget, but I have spoken to Assistant Manager Maria Broadbent, and she has agreed to take on those duties in addition to her current duties at no extra expense. So we are going to have a footprint in the EDC world. The revenues is basically, it's broken down here in the chart. It shows the progression from 22 to 24. 2.54 is the percent increase in our revenues. The expenditures on the next page, obviously the largest department on the town side is the police department. They have a very small increase. One of the bigger increases was Public Works. That includes the $117,000 increase for disposal. Also, the cost of diesel fuel has increased, and their fleet it needs some additional work. So that's the majority of the increase in expenditures for the Public Works Department. For capital improvements, we received approximately $8 million in capital projects sent over from the Planning Commission. There was a variety of asks from all of the departments. What I've done here is kind of stay consistent with what we did last year, what you did last year, and appropriated about 560,000 for the items here in the list. Things that were detailed as urgent by their respective directors. For police, it was servers and an ECO vehicle. Public Works, it was Old North Road and the Tioga Lake Gatehouse. Engineering, it was the Woodland Manor Pump. And for Parks and Recreation, it was the community center floor, the Briar Point Beach parking lot, the Payne parking lot, and the community center roof. And lastly, Mr. Robillard is going to be doing a presentation in 2 weeks on some vans and a program he's working with the RIPTA to acquire 3 vans. And we've included one of those vans here in the capital improvement budget. Next page is ARPA. So this is the current status of where we are. We received $10.4 million in ARPA funds. The balance currently is 8.4. So Lynn Consulting Group did a performance audit about 1.5 years ago. The Trestle Bridge is the blast oil line item of $223,000. The 1.3 million was the fire district distribution that occurred last month. The Beta Group is the comprehensive plan that should be done hopefully very soon this summer. DPW was a truck that they put in for. And the other highlight is the DPW fueling station and diesel emission system for $94,000. Also included in that is $93,000 we've earned an interest. Mrs. Savetti has tried to put that money in some good interest-bearing accounts, so we're able to realize that that additional savings as that money sits there in that account. What we try to do to maximize the municipal budget is to pull out items that are one-time, that things that could be purchased with ARPA money. So things that we've identified out of the police budget is a K-9 vehicle. Out of EMA, the hazard mitigation plan, which is approximately $40,000. The caveat with that is we're also going to be seeking a grant, a 90-10 split grant for the hazard mitigation program plan. If we get that, our contribution will only be $4,000. So that'll lower that ask. Snow removal, Director McGee is looking for strap sleeves for plows around $19,000. Planning is looking for an affordable housing plan to go with the comp plan, and also advertising for the comp plan. Building inspections is looking for 5 new desktops to use their open government. They don't have the necessary items they need right now. And Parks and Recreation, Raina has a nice big list that we've cut back a lot. But that's where we're at. 7,000 for decorations, 115,000 for a backhoe that she will share, she said, with DPW, a lawnmower, groomer, court repairs, and various maintenance equipment.
Ms. Parrillo, Councilmember Shockley just had a question.
You already answered one because you said that this 8,400,000 amount includes interest.
Yeah.
Back to ARPA.
And can I just ask, because I don't remember this at all, why did we give $746 to the Foster Police Department?
Excellent question. I haven't heard back from the chief on that yet. I can follow up. Unless with the Savetti, that was the answer.
I haven't seen that. We're waiting to get information.
Yeah, I reached back. I haven't got our answer back from the chief yet. So
I certainly don't know. My wildest benefit of the doubt guess would be that they did the detail for the Trestle Bridge, but I think that was baked into the cost.
okay.
Already. So, but your guess would be as good as mine. I'm with you there. I saw that come up and I was like,
It was odd. I'll follow up on that.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
then just to make sure I've got all my numbers right, after the urgent asks of about 560,000 and the one time from the budget of 379, we are left with about $7,474,000 in ARPA.
The 560 that's in the capital improvement budget, that's part of the operating budget. We're now listing that as ARPA funding.
Right. So when I take that you have your 8.4 million. When I subtract out the 560,000 and then subtract out the 379,000 that we have here.
The 560 stays in the budget. as
Unless you're
part of the
proposing that
budget.
capital
Oh.
be funded by,
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
apologize. I
separate.
thought you were actually giving two different.
no, I think you're,
proposals.
they're building in operating funds for capital.
Okay. And can I also ask, just because we're talking about capital funds, are we keeping in the capital that we had put into the budget last year? Because we had 500,000, and I'm approximating, for the town and 500,000 for the maintenance for the schools.
Yes.
That's staying
So
within, baked
not
into
all-
our budget.
Not all the projects were done. Not all the capital budget projects were done. And the school money has been spent. The
Okay.
maintenance.
So I just want to make sure that next year it's still in our budget so that we can start building upon that as opposed to going back in time to where we never had money in capital. I know we have ARPA funds now, but we need to start baking that into our budget
In
for
the-
when those disappear.
Yes, in the current operating budget, we are proposing, as just the town managers presented, 560,747
Perfect.
for town capital projects compared to the 555,000 the previous year. But as far as a separate line item for the school department, that's not part of the budget. There is not a separate line item going in next year's budget.
But so it was in this year's budget and we're taking it out for next year's budget?
My understanding was there was a line item that was in there to be utilized if needed.
No,
and
no,
there
that's
was
just the
no-
51,000. That's money that was going to come from ARPA. But based on the fact that we needed to, if I'm remembering this incorrectly, someone else, please let me know. But we were starting to bake in the funds that we're going to need to keep up with the school maintenance, not part of the maintenance of effort,
School
but the building
maintenance.
maintenance.
The 3%.
Yeah, the 3%.
Yes, I
building
remember
maintenance.
there was this is what we're trying to figure out because we don't know how it was organized and filed away in the budget, but I remember how you remember it. A portion of the MMR was operational funds, and then we kicked in ARPA to help them meet the 3%. That's what I remember. How that got organized in the financial end, I have no idea.
I do know that it was meant to stay under the town budget. We were purposely putting it into an account because it's not part of our maintenance of effort and the town actually controls that money.
But as you can see on the slide previous to this, there's no school expenses. We gave them one-time funds.
Right, but we had also built into the budget close $500,000.
Vice President LeBlanc.
So my understanding, the only ARPA funds that we had given to the school last year was, it was around 51,000. Right. That was it out of ARPA. Then we had the CIP budget, okay, of the 500, which is the part that we control. Because if we give it to the school, it's part of MOE. So we had put it into CIP. So there wasn't like 500 for the town and 500 for the school, but that 500 was the same amount. And then if the school needed it, they would let us know, they would submit the invoices, and then we would give them some of that CIP. That's how I understood it, but just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I'd like that clarified too, because like I said, it was a year ago, but I had remembered that we had, I believe a bond had fallen off and we had made it so that we had about $1 million for CIP last year. But I'm glad to relook at it. That is just how I had remembered it. And I would like to take a look.
Mrs. Savetti, in any of the budgets that you've seen, have you seen $1 million for CIP?
Yeah, there are two separate line items. So there was a separate line item that was down with the school department budget for approximately 510,000.
But it's in the school department's budget though.
It was separate from the local appropriation.
It
So
was
no,
separate.
It was separate from the local appropriation, the
Okay.
way it's laid out in the budget that I've seen. So
Okay.
what we did this year, where the school had indicated that they met their 3% requirement.
Yep.
Looking at a project that we think is coming down the road with the sewer project and stuff at the school department, the town's gonna have to be contributing to that project. We
Correct.
did not include a separate line item in the budget for this year.
Yeah, we did not, they submitted about $11 million in capital projects, the school did, and we didn't fund any of them.
They got funded and they simply didn't need that line item for it.
Based on the meeting we had with Harold Sands last week, he indicated that they didn't need the money that we had set aside. And when there were previous discussions with the superintendent, he had indicated that he had reserve funds which were going to be used for the sewer project at the school, at the high school. And those reserves that he was considering were the funds that we had.
And part of this too is they had gotten, I don't know if you remember, they mentioned they got about 900,000 from the state for the safety improvements.
Correct.
And apparently the RIDE told them that counts toward your MMR. So they had already met it.
Which
with
is
that.
fantastic. I'm glad that this year they were able to meet it without this pool of money. And I have no problem with not spending it on that this year. Based on how it's put aside, I don't know if we're allowed to spend it elsewhere or if it has to remain in the account. That I don't know if it's considered put aside for that. But I want to make sure we keep, whether we spend it on the school or the town, we have to keep that additional money there, because when we run out of ARPA funds, we're going to be in the same mess that we would have been in if we don't have that 3% that we can spend. So starting to add to that fund while we have this additional funding to pay for town projects and school projects, I want to keep it there. I don't want to take that line item out. If we use it next year to pay for a sewer or to fix the sewer issue at the school, that's fine. I believe that would probably count towards the maintenance requirement. I just want to make sure that we're not taking capital out of our budget because we have ARPA funds when we're going to then just find ourselves in a mess in about 2 years.
Understood. Just the last page of the presentation, I labeled it current challenges within the school budget. So as you can see, the budget submitted by the Coventry Public School Department requested a total increase of 4.38%, or approximately $3.3 million over what was approved by this council last year. With the increase in state aid, the additional appropriation requested from the town's general fund was approximately $1.68 million. School administration indicated that a portion of the state mandated 3% maintenance that we were just talking about for this year has not been budgeted. That's approximately $1 million. That brings their total ask to $2.6 million. In addition, I have allocated $500,000 because that is basically all the budget can handle. It is paramount that the town and the schools work together to find ways to meet the state maintenance requirement effort in order not to jeopardize our state housing aid, which is approximately $500,000. Fully funding the school at their ask would have been a tax levy increase of 5.36%, which exceeds the maximum levy increase of 4% allowed by state law. So I think the bottom line is the school needs to come to the table with a budget that's reasonable, that includes cuts, that includes living within their means, because right now they are not living within their means. I don't think they're making enough effort to get their staffing where it needs to be. 85% of their budget is salaries and staff. They control that. That's within their control. And right now they're not doing it. So we need to work with them to get it to the point where our children are getting educated, but it's not costing the taxpayers the amount that it's costing them right now, and basically creating a deficit for the town.
Councilmember Shockley.
Thank you. I just want to ask, have you looked at their budget and you can see that student to staffing ratios don't match? Like,
So the number of children in the school system is down about 17% over the last 10 years. And their staffing has not decreased at all. That's a problem.
I do think that that has to be a discussion with the finance and administration at the school. Because I'd like to make sure we have a better understanding of how schools have to be staffed. Like, I don't disagree with you. I just want to see some factual information in front of me showing there are this many, the student to teacher ratio for these positions is overstaffed, and whatever the positions are that are outside of the normal teaching requirements, we have too many people. because I also see the problem of we're just extremely top loaded. As are most towns in the state of Rhode Island and probably in a lot of states, most of our teachers are at top step.
Mhm.
So I think, just making sure that we're right about the staffing levels and that we can kind of help intelligently make sure that our staffing levels get to where they need to be for the budget. Because I don't feel comfortable saying your staffing levels are wrong. I wouldn't feel comfortable telling you your staffing levels are wrong because I don't know exactly how many people it takes to run departments. So I feel just as comfortable telling Superintendent Coward as Director McGee that his staffing levels are wrong. I'd want to be able to look and say, this many hours a day, this many kids per room, this is what we need. When, like I said, I feel like a lot of the issue is that as even looking, as contracts change, we seem to provide more to those top step people too. So, a lot of things I think can be looked at, but I want to make sure that when we say we're at the wrong levels, we have better numbers than that.
I think numbers can be interpreted different ways. So I've brought some numbers to the school administration. For instance, a broad number, it looks like we probably have 400 to 500 more students here in Coventry than we do in West Warwick. We also have 120 more staff for those 500 students, which seems extraordinary. But again, it's all how they're saying they're repurposing, redistributing, reimagining their staff to go in different directions. That's all well and good if you can stay within your budget. And right now they're not staying within their budget. And it's creating a deficit. No matter what I do on this side is not going to make up because their 70% controls the budget. No matter how many positions I cut here, we can't make up for the overages on the other side. So that is it. For my presentation, I can take any questions. Mr. Savetti can take any questions.
Members of the council, questions? Councilmember Shockley?
I was a little confused by the wording, I think, on the motor vehicle tax. So are we down 2.6 million? I feel there was a page that showed this to me better, but I was just confused on if we're down 2.6 million.
We don't collect motor vehicle tax anymore.
I
so
know.
we get that same 2.6 automatically funded by the state now. That's just incorporated as part of state aid. Before it used to be a separate line item in the budget, but now if you look at it, it's not there anymore because now it's incorporated within state aid.
Okay, so
Yeah, so on the slide that.
so you
we had
see an
here-
increase because now it includes the motor vehicle tax.
Correct. That was the big chunk of it, where we're showing state aid went up by 32.7%. Such a large percentage increases because motor vehicles got reclassified from a levy that the town assesses versus the state reimbursing that fund.
So we're down 3.4 million though, to increase by 2.6, or we're
Yeah,
down
roughly.
about 800 or what, 1.2?
Correct.
Okay. So we're really down 1.2 million because we used to get 3.4 from motor vehicle tax and now we're getting 2.6.
I'd have to look at the levy to give you the accurate answer on that, if that number's correct, but.
Plus, I think
we'd
I
have
did
to
that
see what the
backwards.
levy, what it was versus what we're getting reimbursed. But the way the state did the reimbursement, it went back to a base period of 2018 was the base period, but that's what we're going to be funded each year annually.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Have you communicated the 500,000 to the schools yet to them so that they can appropriately budget?
I have not. I told them that I would do the best I can do, but I can't hit 2.6 million.
I believe that we did because when we had a leadership meeting with them last week, we said, even to give you a $500,000 amount, that's what we could give and legally stay within the 4%. So that was the number we'd already
Yeah.
floated out to them.
Understood. I just don't know if it was confirmed.
I didn't
know it was
officially
a
contact them
hypothetical.
and say,
Right.
tonight I'm presenting this number, but we had the conversation about that 500,000, but
Just want to make sure that it's communicated to them so that they have some time to appropriately budget, knowing that that's what they're going to potentially get.
yes.
Thank you for pulling this presentation together. You've been here 3 weeks and here you are presenting a budget in front of us for the first time.
It's a good team around me.
Yes, thank you very
Thanks.
much to Mr. Savetti as well. I I definitely am uneasy about a 3.81% increase. I would like to, know our options of where we can, in Mr. LeBlanc's terms, pull a lever to see some relief. I also believe that if we're asking the school side to sharpen their pencil, that we should do the same. Mr. Parrillo, what savings, if any, has the town side found since we last presented or started talking about budgets at the budget hearings a few weeks ago?
We found close to about $100,000 on the police side that we've cut, and there are some things we can do with staffing to cut some more if need be. There's definitely some room. But again, I just would hope to see the same reciprocal cutting on the other side as well in order to make this work.
Sure. And it appears in the budget binder we have, a majority of departments, probably over 80%, are being level funded or actually seeing slight decreases in their budgets for the town side. Is that correct?
Yes. We tried to, again, cut as much as we can on our side without affecting services. That's the goal, is to find that balance where we're staying within a budget, but the residents and business owners aren't going to see a dramatic drop if we're cutting back on half a person or one person.
Mhm.
So again, it's trying to find that balance as to how the town can best function going forward.
Okay. And I think it's important to note too, in the positions that you were noting, adding the engineer piece, I think is very important given the volume of work that comes in and the amount of development in Coventry. And if the sewer program is to have a future, it needs that support.
Yes.
I also think it's worth noting that with the finance department, where those positions, they're being repurposed, their salaries, especially the deputy director, I think was in the $90,000 range.
Yes.
And the deputy and the town treasurer also, I forget what the salary was there, but those are being repurposed more into entry level, low management
Yes.
salaries. So I think that's worth pointing out as well, which I appreciate, and fitting more of the needs of the department. I also appreciate your recommendations for ARPA and the capital budget as well. But I do have concerns knowing that we can't even come close to meeting the school's full request, not even legally if we wanted to.
Correct.
And if I don't know if folks saw on the slide there on the last one that if we wanted to give the school the full increase, it would be a 5.36% tax increase, which we legally cannot do. And even just to get in the range of having a legal tax increase, we could only give them 500 or less. So I think that's important to think about. Vice President LeBlanc.
So I would like to echo some of the statements that you made. I think 3.81 is too high personally, especially for those residents who just received a sticker shock on their assessments going up. So I certainly want some levers that we can utilize to reduce that, if not some creative options using ARPA, if possible, because I know we have that available and we can use some ARPA funds to offset some of this increase. I know people are going to say it's kicking the can down the road, but I just think it's would be useful. And forgive me if it was on a slide, but what would the residential rate be using this budget or the corporate rate?
Yeah, currently right now, until we get the valuation back and we know the values of the property, we can't determine a rate at this point. Because with the, with the statistical reval, all the values are being adjusted. So if our current rate is 23 change, that rate, like any reval year, that rate would be decreased. So until we know the details.
But how do you, I guess, forgive me, how do we not know the details if all those assessments already went out in the mail to all the residents?
Today, those were just the initial ones. So there's the appeal time.
Understood,
which
but
may
I mean,
change them.
based off of the preliminary, I thought that would be possible.
We don't have those numbers right now because we know they're going to change.
Got it.
We know they're going to change.
I've heard that because of the reval, the tax rate is supposed to go down. So I want the public to know what the rate would be potentially based off of this budget. So I think the residential rate was 19 and change. I don't know if it's 17, I don't know if it's 16, I don't know what it is currently. And I just want to know what that is before we obviously
Yeah.
approve of
Can
the
we,
budget.
can we get a preliminary at least when we provisionally vote on a budget on the 25th?
I can sort the carry.
Just an estimate to work.
Yeah,
from.
it would truly be
mean,
that, because
yeah.
obviously with the changes and you do have the frozen valuation.
caveat.
Frozen's
Yeah. The frozen and the exemptions really take a chunk of money out.
Understood.
So,
But
but
we can-
yeah,
we
we can
can
try to
do the
get you a
ballpark.
temporary or initial estimate
I would appreciate
for
it.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Pasqua.
So I'm gonna echo the concerns that I've heard tonight about the 3.81% increase. That's quite a bit. So I like Councilmember LeBlanc stated, I also want to see these levers, see if there's anything that we could possibly do. I know we have some economic development type stuff in this budget, which to me is extremely important. Sewers, infrastructure upgrades. And as we know, I've been a big proponent of getting commercial in Coventry. I think it's going to be a good investment for us and it's going to help us relieve this problem going forward. So, you know, maybe some ARPA funds to point it towards some of that stuff, the sewers and things like that, to be able to beef up our infrastructure, sort of invest in our future in that way, because it's really what the ARPA funds are for. Another thing, you know, I do want to look at, you made a statement just a couple minutes ago about some of the tax freezes and things like that affect this. I definitely want to look at that in the future, maybe an income-based tax freeze instead of age-based, you know, in the future, because there are some people that are younger and you know, have to pay quite a few, you know, quite a bit of taxes, but they're older and older people may have a lot more capital behind them, but they're frozen for years and it just doesn't seem fair. So I think we need to really look at that, but whatever we can do to decrease this number, we have to.
Councilmember Shockley.
I definitely agree that I would prefer any tax freeze we give to be based more on your income than how old you are. And if older people fall into the income levels, they'll still, you know, keep the advantages of whatever tax freeze we have. I'll also say I need to get a better understanding. I read the tax freeze law today and have no clearer a picture of how it works than I had before I read it. So definitely want to get better information for myself about how that works. I had a resident ask me about it and I couldn't assist with what she should do on that. While I want to increase the budget as little as possible every year, I do want to keep in mind that we don't want to take capital out of our budget that we are working to bake into it. You know, it is really important that in 5 years, we don't look back and say, okay, we did a little and now we can do nothing else, because we didn't ramp this up when we had the opportunity, because we had the additional funds. I'd also like to say that depending on whether or not the town decides to move forward with a bond, we're going to see an increase in taxes based on that. And in the years we see those increases is when I'd like to be even more resolute about keeping the tax rate down. So this year, as we don't have any bonding going onto the budget, I think we need to keep that in mind as we see what our needs are. I know the town, before they got to their budget, already cut. I know the school, before they got to theirs, already cut. And we've cut additionally to get ourselves to this 3.8. I don't want people to look at that 3.8 number and think, oh, they got everything they needed at 3.8. That's fantastic. We cut a lot to get to that number. And I think we have to keep that in mind. We have to be fiscally responsible to both the individual resident and the town as a whole.
Thank you. I do think in the terms of ARPA and using it wisely, I think there's a way that marries together the point that Vice President LeBlanc's trying to make and the point that Councilmember Shockley's trying to make. I think there's ways that it can be used to ramp up fully funding certain line items that haven't been funded in years. I'm working currently right now with Manager Parrillo on pulling together a comprehensive road paving program that would also include how to fully fund that and get it built into the operating budget, starting using ARPA funds. So I think initiatives like that are important. Vice President LeBlanc and I have a high priority in policy wise for financial items. So this summer, we're hoping to introduce ordinances that would see unused funds and say salt and sand line items roll over to be used in the DPW budget to make it more self-sustaining and invest in itself. Same thing with Parks and Rec. Also similar ordinances, just smart use of funds. Same thing with oversight as well. Many of you have asked to start having conversations about a financial oversight board or a budget committee to help with as well and provide some more taxpayer involvement and oversight with finances. So we have another update coming after this, having a town investment policy. We don't have one. So those are other things to consider, but it's all top priorities from leadership here that we're having the timeline over the next couple of months. So, Mr. Savetti, any final comments on this budget? You didn't get a chance to speak. I know it's technically this guy's, but if you put in a lot of work here too.
Now, again, I'll just state, as the town manager indicated, we appreciate all the work that the various department directors, met with us, went through the budget. We had, going through it in detail. Obviously, I wish I could have more accurate information as far as where we stand current year and even 2022. We're still working through that information. So what we presented you with what we feel is the most realistic budget. Certainly there may be a couple things here and there we can cut, but I think all the departments are pretty lean. I know the director for Parks and Recs here, and we probably worked with her more than anybody. And, we appreciate the help, but I know they still have quite a bit of items that they like to get back just to where they were several years ago before COVID. So although we see an increase there, you'll see that the revenue came in as well, and trying to get, as we talked at one of the previous meetings, where the revenue is accounted for with the expenses. And I think that was a disconnect in the current fiscal year where their revenue was put into the budget for fiscal 23, but the expenses for the programs were not. So we're trying to get on the same page and make sure everything's in there. So again, I think it's a lean budget, but we'll certainly go back to the drawing board, and we're willing to work with any of the members on the council if you want to meet and go line by line and see what's there. But again, I think.
And I would encourage members of the council to do that and go meet with them and really get intimate with the budget. So please do. Any further discussion from members of the council? So just next steps from here, I again would really encourage you to go in, get out your pencil, take a look at the budget, and make sure you visit with administration, talk about areas where you think should see some adjustments, whether in either direction. We provisionally vote to adopt a budget on the 25th, so in 2 weeks. So, please use the next 2 weeks wisely to get with them, because obviously we'd like whatever the revised version of the budget is to get before the council for consideration with the packet that weekend. So, thank you. Town investment update, Mr. Parrillo.
Thank you. We did meet with our investment contractor, GYL, and I'm going to turn that over to Solicitor Angel for an update as to what was presented and kind of where we're at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Parrillo. So on the 31st of March, myself, Mr. Savetti, Mr. Parrillo met with GYL Financial Strategies to discuss the police pension plan, the schools, the town, and we have an investment account with GYL as well. It was an excellent meeting. GYL frankly would like to meet more with the town, but that's not been the case, and not for the lack of asking. The one common theme that comes from what I observed is a lack of an investment policy and oversight by the council with respect to that policy. We don't have one. We don't have one for any one of the 4 accounts that I talked about. Most communities have an overarching plan with respect to investments that would regulate risk tolerances. So for example, in the town's investment account, just to give you a sense. And, rather than talk about the volatility that's occurred in the different accounts with respect to police, town and school pensions, the schools really direct to a large extent their risk tolerances, which has been a lot more aggressive than the police and the town side. Given the recent economic downturn, police and the town side have, endured, if you will, in our position to recover as the markets recover. The investment account, however, is a much different story. Let's just take round numbers. Approximately $5 million was allocated in that investment account. And in May of 2021, over 70% of that money was put into equities. I believe it was 80% actually was put into equities. We lost $1.2 million since 2021. That account has recovered somewhat. So we're negative just under 900,000 at this point in that account. You cannot sell those securities. I mean, if you do, you take a loss. We're working with GYL to figure out a strategy to recover that. This book that you see in front of me is what is generally provided at the type of review meeting that I'm accustomed to going to. And they did an excellent job. There's a lot of information here. The town manager was asked to sign off on certain changes, buy, sell, and repositioning, which he did. Those changes had been outstanding for quite some time and had gone unanswered. GYL had requested that be done. I want to say early fall. I could be wrong. With that said, the overarching concern is a lack of accounts and controls with respect to the risk tolerances that would be dictated by an investment policy. And so what I have recommended to the town manager and the finance director is that we visit our code of ordinances to change that, which would mandate an investment policy to be approved by this council, and for the council to be given a better understanding of where we stand with our various investments and pension plans. I don't see where that's happened. GYL was very quick to point out that they were uncomfortable in May of 2021 when they were told to reallocate those monies in our investment account. And they were and I can understand why, because my question was one of legal compliance. Who made that decision and why would you invest in equities? It's very unusual. I had this discussion with Mr. Civetti. We took a look at, state law regulations and so forth. It's really deferred to your investment policy as approved by the council through, an ordinance framework. We just simply don't have it, and we need it. It's now on the grid. Since that meeting, I've ramped up and we have drafted an investment policy. We're evaluating the ordinance scheme that we will need for you to pass. That would be a recommendation. I'll be working with Mr. Civetti when he can get his nose out of a budget a little bit more regularly to achieve that. But this has come to the fore, if you will, in terms of requirements. Yes.
Just a quick question, Solicitor Angel. So we have directors that come in front of the council for us to approve a $20,000 expense. You're talking about millions of dollars and they were clearly not comfortable with this change. Now, why was that never put in front of council to approve?
I don't know. What I can say to you is this, okay? In this, you're dealing with an institutional brokerage. This is not, type of brokerage that, the ordinary taxpayer would engage in. Financial institutions have institutional brokers, so do municipalities. They specialize in this type of thing. You can have a policy that provides discretion to the fund managers within a certain realm of tolerance to make adjustments that are not quite in the moment adjustments, but as they see things occurring in the economy, much like a mutual fund manager or a managed fund manager would do, and make those adjustments to minimize the downside. That wasn't done here. So right now, the town, in its investment committee composition, if you will, with the town manager, finance director, and union person on a pension, for example, they make those adjustments. And they have to be approved at that committee meeting with the investment advisor. My advice would be that we allow GYL within a risk of realm of tolerance to make those adjustments, because they're going to need to be made in some instances sooner than a 3-month meeting, which doesn't always happen on schedule, as I'm sure you can imagine. But the policy needs to come from this council. And frankly, it would be my recommendation that this council not have any investments in equities with respect to a cash account, which is your investments. I mean, there are a variety of things that you could have put that money in and preserve principal, as opposed to put it really completely at risk. It's different with respect to a pension fund, obviously, because it's a longer time horizon. And Mr. Civetti and I had this discussion. It's not uncommon or uncustomary to do that in a pension fund, because you have many years where you're before the retirees are drawing on that. When it comes to an investment account of this type, it's almost a cash account.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm getting a little lost here. So
They manage all four.
they manage the police pension, the town.
Schools.
They don't manage the school's pension.
Yep. They have.
For the municipal employees there? Okay, for the SRP?
For the SRP. Yep.
Okay. And then there's just an account that they manage. They're like the cash manager for us, which typically you'd think things would go into a short-term CD or something along those lines.
Well, there are better strategies than that, which is why if you have a certain float of money that you don't necessarily need to tap right away, okay, there is a strategy that you utilize to get a better rate of return than you would in an ordinary money market, for example. That said, however, they have the purchasing power to go to financial institutions as we aggregate our accounts and seek a better relationship on a money market or a CD basis, and to ladder those out in a way as we have cash needs.
Right. I mean, they have entire branches of the bank that are just for that. So I just wanted to make sure I understood this was not any sort of retirement account. This was,
No,
and someone here said put it into 80%
that's correct.
equity funds.
That's correct.
And I agree with Councilmember LeBlanc. I can't currently think of anyone who has the knowledge of investments to have made that decision within the town. So if any sort of large movement like that is going on, I mean, if someone here wants to make that monthly call to see what the rates are at local banks, I think that makes perfect sense.
Well,
I think with any sort of other investment outside of that for cash accounts, we do need that to, I would think, go to Mr. Civetti as well, but just based on past history, probably should come before the council. And I would also agree that for our pension accounts, the knowledge of the institution taking care of these should be staying within the range. If we want a 60-40 or whatever that may be, leave that to experts to make those decisions. I'm almost surprised that this company manages our cash accounts, and I wonder why.
That's not uncommon. They can get better institutional rates than Mr. Civetti can get calling local banks. They just can. That's what they do, and a half a point on $5 million means a lot of money. They can invest in things like overnight sweeps and things of that nature that, you know.
Which banks do too.
What, and I understand that.
Well,
That's-
I guess I used to work at a bank and I know that a lot of towns would call and this is my 30-day CD. This is, what do you have for a 60-day? And I believe that's how a lot of towns do it. And I don't want to make managing $5 million a huge expense for us either. While $5 million is not something I want to waste and, roll the dice on, it's also not such a large amount of money that I necessarily want this institute. I don't know the costs, but I don't know that this is the correct institution to be taking care of it.
Again, where this came up, if I can, we were looking to shuffle some money around, right? Cash is getting tight, looking to move some money around. So in the internal financial statements, it was listed as a money market account. At least that was the abbreviation how it was interpreted. So we contacted GYL and that's when it came to our attention that it was held in equities. And so during that meeting, we had a discussion with them. They have provided some documentation as to what type of rates they can get by putting in a money market type accounts or other type of 100% guaranteed security, I won't say security, but 100% guaranteed accounts so that we wouldn't be at the risk and it would still be very liquid. So
Right.
As the solicitor just mentioned, they may be able to get us a greater return than if we have accounts with TD Bank, we have accounts with Centerville. I said numerous accounts, but at this point, obviously we're trying to figure out what we have, what's in each place. And we will be looking to consolidate a lot of those accounts so that we will be able to even maximize that rate of return within some of the local institutions. But during that process, that's when we'll evaluate all of it, even the accounts that are with GYL. But again, if they're able to maximize and get us, a 5% return without locking up those funds for even if it's only 6-7 months versus a local institution that might only get us 3% return, we'd be willing to, I think, keep the funds there to get that higher rate of return. As the solicitor said, when you're talking millions of dollars, 0.5% can be significant.
So,
But if I can just add, any investments, again, or where we're looking to place funds, if we are going to close in bank accounts and stuff, we would certainly provide the details to the council so that you know what's going on. But while I'm sitting in this seat, I won't be investing in any type of securities. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've never seen a municipality in the state of Rhode Island that's invested operating funds into equities.
and that's the key difference here. Those were operating funds. They never should have been in equity.
Vice President Blank.
So first, I just want to say thank you for the transparency, whether it's good news or bad news. I appreciate that. I wanted to state that my experience when these type of investment accounts are opened, they require some type of investment policy. So are you saying that they currently don't have any type of investment policy whatsoever? That's what you're saying?
There is no investment policy on file with them.
It's typically required, but I find that odd. But then my third.
On our
last-
end, I think he's saying.
No, I find that odd.
Policy.
They
So
have
there was
draft
discussion
policies.
of draft policies, but the board members never
Right.
adopted those policies.
Board
And they
members,
shouldn't- the account should have been opened in my opinion,
well,
but
they,
in any event. it's fine.
that's why I looked at it, but there is
get it.
cover for that.
And then my last question is, what's the ETA on us seeing an investment policy? 'Cause
Um,
I think we needed it yesterday.
Yeah, probably 30 days or less.
Okay.
I mean, it's expedited at this point. It's come to the top of a list that's as long as the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it's made its way to the top of the list.
Thank you. Councilmember Shockley.
Going to that idea that the list is long and they have draft investment policy statements, I would think that probably we don't have to reinvent the wheel on this. Oh, perfect. Oh, okay, great. So sounds like it got to the top of the scroll.
Right, thank you. So just to recap, previous town manager and finance director made the decision themselves to invest large sums of money into equities without the council's knowledge. Turns out we don't have an investment policy as a town, which we're supposed to have, and we're on track to put that up for consideration for the council. Toot sweet. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to resolutions of the council. That was a link for this. Yep. Assistant manager broadband, if you wanted to maybe just talk about all of these are all in the same vein. If you could just discuss these first. And then we'll go from there.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the council. Maria Broadbent, Assistant Town Manager. The resolutions before you are to put certain projects on the state's project priority list. So in order for us to be eligible for grants through the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and the Clean Water State Financing Fund, the projects need to be on a list. It doesn't mean we ever have to apply for the loans, but this is what needs to happen in order for them to be on there. They're all projects that are associated with water pollution control, stormwater, or a lot of the discussions that we've been having lately about sewers and wastewater programs. So it's a step in that process. The state has to approve them being added to the list. Where we are in terms of the priority list is how we compare to the other 100 projects that are on there. But we've got some good ones, and I think we stand a good chance. Anything that I've applied for that had to do with funding from the state, whether it be even through our congressional delegation asking for earmarks and those things, ask of a project has been on the project priority list. So this is that step in the process that makes it transparent for everyone and puts those projects, our request to put those projects on that list.
So in layman's terms, putting these projects on this list, if we make that list, affords us the opportunity to spend less of town dollars and also have alternative financing to help relieve the burden on taxpayers.
That's right. So if
Okay.
we were looking at the sewer fund and projects that are this big on the sewer fund, if we can spread them out over 20 years and make it so we're not increasing the rates as high as we could, in order to spread the funding out over time, it's really a good way to go.
Okay.
There's certain things, one of the projects in here is for an area of town where the income is a little bit more moderate, and there may be opportunities for loan forgiveness because of that if we get into certain grant programs and other things. So it's really just an opportunity. There's no obligation to actually apply for the loans, but if we don't get on that list and it has a timeline, I did all the applications. They were due on the 31st. So all the application process has been done. This is just your part of that application process.
Excellent. Thank you. So we'll start with A, Resolution 2023-20 DEM Project Priority List Submission for Coventry High School On-Site Wastewater Treatment System. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley, second by Vice President LeBlanc. Discussion. Vice President LeBlanc.
Could you just let us know where the $4.6 million figure came from in this resolution?
Through working with Fuss O'Neill as part of we've sort of expanded their work a little bit to make sure that we're looking closely at that system at the high school. But this is part of the wastewater facilities plan. It's that building that line on Reservoir Road so that we can actually connect the high school to that line.
Great, thank you.
And in terms of this project, as far as I know, we've pushed back making a spend like this into the actual plan. And in the meantime, doing a less expensive option of repairing the on-site system that's there for right now.
And looking for approval to repair the on-site system. So
Gotcha.
that's a linchpin in that. So.
Okay. Members of the council, additional questions? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Item B, Resolution 2023-21 DEM Project Priority List Submission for Sandy Bottom Pump Station Evaluation and Improvements. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilman Pasqua. Discussion? Just want to speak to this? Another project that's on the,
That's right. There are two pump station projects on here. This pump station was evaluated in 2021, and there was a list of recommendations that were made to bring it up to speed. This is to do the actual work. You have something on there for ARPA funds to actually have a real serious evaluation of those two pump stations. The Sandy Bottom Pump Station is the biggest mechanical part of your sewer system right now. The risk of that not working is catastrophic. So we really need to make sure that we're doing the best we can for that station. Director McGee from Public Works has been having those stations looked at for energy efficiency because they're probably some of the biggest energy users in town. And the work that we do to evaluate these will want to incorporate that energy efficiency work. So if we're looking at major electricity drawing equipment, pumps and such, to make sure that we're making the investment in those to be not only working well, but energy efficiency as well. So this figure is to actually do that work.
Vice President LeBlanc.
And the figure again came from Fuss and O'Neill, just to confirm.
I believe they were the ones that evaluated that pump station. Yes.
Okay. I just have to say that this is an extremely essential part of our sewer system. And we have a lot of businesses that utilize this sewer system and in around this area. So it is needed. So.
Yes, if I remember correctly, we talked about this at the sewer subcommittee and how we were concerned when they were drilling and pile driving to do the bridge over there. We were concerned it was going to crack the pipes and potentially blow this all. So definitely see that
it's an important project.
Extremely. Further discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving on to C, Resolution 2023-22, DEM priority list submission for the design of wastewater facility plan, planning area number 9. This kind of preempts and steals the thunder of a later item on the agenda, but you can speak to this.
So I won't go into great detail and I'll let that be a big part of that presentation. This is the area that came out with the most community support through the sewer survey that we did. And as part of the wastewater facility plan, it's the area where we have some cesspools in the system. And, you know, everybody knows the water quality in Lake Tahoe could be greater. So this is for the design portion, not the construction portion, but the design portion of that sewer planning area.
Questions, comments from members of the council?
Same question. The 2.2 came from Fuss and O'Neill.
That's right.
Thank you.
And I've also applied to Senator Whitehouse's office for an earmark for the actual construction of that area.
Great. Thank you.
So congressionally directed spending?
For
Okay.
the construction.
Okay.
Not for the design, but for the construction.
Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
I don't remember hearing a motion on this one.
Oh. Did we not? Do I have a motion to approve resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilman Pasqua. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yep.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Item D, Resolution 2023-23 DEM project priority list for submission for Johnson Boulevard Lake George Culvert Project. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'd like to make an amendment first.
We got to open up.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Shockley. Vice President LeBlanc.
I'd like to make an amendment. There is no dollar amount on this resolution, and I know the RIDEM priority list requires a dollar amount to be added. Per discussion with the town manager, I received a dollar amount of $780,000 for this project. So it just needs to be the 4th bullet point. And I would add that just the cost essentially. This project will cost $780,000.
Is that a formal motion?
Yes.
We have a motion from Vice President LeBlanc to add a 4th bullet to the resolution outlining the cost. This project will cost $780,000. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we're now back to the resolution as amended. Any further discussion?
Can we just discuss the project, please?
Yep.
Absolutely. This is a reoccurring project that Mr. McGee has talked to me about several times. There are water quality issues associated with the pond. And this, a lot of which are contributed to a couple of old culverts that are undersized over time. They're causing flooding issues in that area. And a lot of the sediment that's washed around those culverts is actually helping to bring pollution or into the pond and affecting the water quality. It's something that Director McGee has been trying to get funding for years. So this is just an opportunity to set us up a little better to maybe get some grants or some other things in the future.
Councilman Pasqua?
I just want to kind of clear up something in case people are listening at home. You're referring to the pond, but you actually mean Lake Tioga, not Johnson's Pond.
No,
Neither.
Johnson Boulevard, Lake George, right? It's the small part of the smaller pond that feeds into Tioga.
Yeah, over by Hopkins Hill School.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vice President LeBlanc?
If my memory serves me correctly, it was about a year ago. I thought there was a special council meeting
Yes,
and I thought that
2 years ago.
2 years ago, sorry. I didn't.
Time
like it
flies
that
when you're
long
having
ago.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought the cost at that time was 330,000. So I just didn't know.
No, it was in the 600s.
We vote, it was, okay. I could have sworn it was 330,000 that night, but
No, it was in the 600s. There was, it ultimately had the votes to approve it. But from what I understand, it never actually went forward because they couldn't get they needed an easement from certain people and they couldn't get easements from everybody in time. And they needed to get the project done before Kent County Water closed the road. And they were like, we've got the road open from this time to this time. If you guys don't have your act together to get in there while we're in there, then too bad.
Yeah, and if I may, Madam President, now we're in a better position because the director has worked to get the easements and Kent County Water actually rerouted their water line to accommodate the construction of this project. So we're in a better position today than we were then, but the cost isn't going down.
understood. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Item E, Resolution 2023-24 DEM Project Priority List Submission for Tioga Lake Outlet Gatehouse Replacement and Monitoring System. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'd like to make amendment.
Vice President LeBlanc?
This resolution also is missing a cost. So I would just like to add the amendment that says, this project will cost $123,950.
Yep.
$950.
We have a motion to amend on the floor. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion?
If we could just,
We'll
Hear about the
stick
project.
just to just this for now. Yeah, we'll get there. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we're now back to the resolution as amended. Vice President LeBlanc?
If we could just hear a little bit about the project.
Yep.
Please.
Happy to. So this is another project that's been on everyone's radar for some time. The gatehouse for Lake Tioga was built in the 1930s, and it's a little brick building with wooden gates. It really needs to be replaced. The town actually hired divers and folks to evaluate it back in 2015, and there was a lot of work. It was recommended to be replaced and also put in an electronic monitoring system, so we can actually monitor the flow rates and the condition and such via a computer. So that recommendation was made in 2015, and this would put that project on the priority list to make it eligible for loans or other types of grants if they exist.
Any further discussion, members of the council? All right, we'll move to the vote on the resolution as amended. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Shockley, Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Item F, Resolution 2023-25 DEM Project Priority List Submission for Woodland Manor Pump Station Evaluation and Improvements. Do I hear a motion to approve resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion from Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Pasqua. Discussion? Want to just speak to this quickly?
Happy to. This is the second pump station, which when the town took over that pump station, it was studied by a different consulting company who made a list of recommendations for things to be done back in 2013. None of those improvements have been made. So this is to actually get those improvements done. And most of them are maintenance issues, but again, the price tag isn't getting smaller.
Discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on, public comment for undocketed items. Are there any members of the public here in council chambers who'd like to make a public comment on undocketed items? Just come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening.
And just
my
make
name-
sure the
oh,
microphone's on.
sorry.
Yep.
Do I have this? Sorry about that. Good evening. My name is Tammy Anderson. I'm a resident of Coventry. I live at 21 Paul Sprague Drive. I'm attending this evening regarding the street lights that were installed onto that new street. They're not operational at this time. My understanding is that when the boxes were put in before the street was completed, that the copper wiring was stripped from those. This is an issue for us, the residents, as the streetlights have been installed. However, they're not operational. So my husband and I have questions regarding, the functionality of the lights. Regarding the streetlights, we would like to know if there is any wiring on the streetlights. So we could have the lights connected. If not, then wire the poles up.
Can I take this?
I know you're an expert. Thank
No,
you
no,
for
no,
looking
not,
into
no,
it.
I wouldn't say an expert, but
Yes.
if I could give you my card with my cell phone number on it,
Yes.
this whole issue has been a pain in the butt, and not because of you, but because of a lot of holes in bureaucracy and processes in the town. And I would love to take the time to speak with you and your husband as well, to give you the full background and the history on it. I've been speaking and I have met with many of your neighbors in that development as well. And I would be happy to give you an update and tell you the exact details of where it stands.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through the questions. The questions that we have is, was there no bond posted by the developer, for that situation? And of course, who is going to be responsible for the wiring? If there are no wires, and finally, how long until the lights are going to work on the street?
Okay,
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
thank you. Any other members? Yes, just come forward, state your name and address for the record. Make sure you're speaking into the microphone.
Good evening, I'm Mike Grattan. I live at 94 Wisteria Drive in Coventry. I had two things I wanted to speak about just briefly tonight. The first being, there's a property at 98 Wisteria Drive that's been abandoned for a number of years now that's owned by a nonprofit. It's in really rough shape, broken windows. The house is falling apart and there's animals coming in and out of it. The neighbors have taken to the last few years tending to the lawn so it doesn't look as so it can it's not quite as bad as it really is, but there's still electricity going to it. And our concern is now that it could be a fire hazard. So we just wanted to see if somebody in the town could look into that and put some pressure on the property owner, who I think may even have a tax lien. I'm not 100% sure on that, on the property. But that being said, I just wanted to bring that to the attention of somebody at the town so that maybe that could get moved along because, you know, we're concerned. It's a rundown house. It could be a fire hazard. We've had situations where we've heard people coming in and out of it at night, maybe squatters. I don't know, not recently, but last fall. So anyways, just want to bring that to town's attention. The other thing I wanted to speak to real quickly was just again to discuss or just to bring up my opposition to the proposed development as it stands at the Coventry crossings. Number of neighbors of mine and myself have been discussing this, have been at various meetings, done different things, but basically as the proposal stands and has been proposed to the Planning Commission, we just feel it's not representative of what our neighborhood is like. You know, between the lack of setbacks for houses, right now our properties are all about 90 feet setback from the property line. That the development as proposed has 40 feet setback on property. Big commercial area. And again, I just want to express our concern that the environmental impact of it, we haven't seen any real, you know, studies or anything. Hopefully they'll be coming out as far as the rainwater and runoff. Right now, most of the houses in our neighborhood in the spring or heavy rains do pump water. With all that additional hardscape, that's going to impact a lot of people of us who live on the borders, a lot of the butters. And we just want to see, again, we're opposed to the project as it stands. And we just wanted to, you know, bring our opposition to be made known. I have a whole bunch of other things I'd like to say, but at this time, I don't want to take everybody's time. I'd be happy to meet with anybody personally or discuss by email, but I appreciate it. It's been a long evening and I appreciate all of your time and all of your service to the town, as well as the people here to hear and speak what they need to speak about. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
If
you
I
for
could
participating.
offer my card so you can reach out.
Copycat.
Oh, no, it was a good idea. I take good ideas.
Sure, if you want to just send me an email too with your concerns, we can follow up. Thanks.
His email's townmanager@coventryri.org. So it should be on the website. I know he was trying to send it telepathically, but I figured I'd call him out.
I could also forward it.
Yeah. Get original. All right. Any members on Zoom or anyone else in, oh, one more, go ahead. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Pendergast, 6 White Rock Road. I'm also the Vice President of the Upper Dam Pond Conservation Association. So to the council and our new town manager and directors as well, on behalf of the Upper Dam Pond Conservation Association, I want to thank our new town manager. How long does new last? Okay, it's over, right.
This is Rhode Island, 10 years.
My District 3 representative, Mr. LeBlanc, for approving and sponsoring the Barometer fundraiser at the corner of Jervis Street and Black Rock Road for 2023. In the past 2 years, the Upper Dam Pond Conservation Association has spent over $26,000 through donations and some grants to clear the aquatic invasive species from Upper Dam Pond and restore the lake for swimming, boating, and fishing. The Barometer fundraiser itself over the last 2 years has generated $6,000 to that cause. So it's a worthy endeavor to keep that in its place. And it is a shared responsibility because we do have the town logo on that sign. So if you ever go by Jervis and Black Rock, you'll see the town logo there as a sponsor for what we're doing for Upper Dam Pond. So while the association is restoring the lake, the larger stormwater runoff process is still an issue. The association is committed to working with the town for funding this larger project. And I know that we've had some preliminary discussions about what could happen there and what we might be able to do to generate funds for that. I'm actively working with the town on a couple of grants to help that process along. And I now know that my property is now worth $50,000 more than it was yesterday when I received the land portion. So I'm suggesting that the town must believe that Upper Dam Pond is worthwhile since I'm going to be spending more. And that money, some of it could be used to help fund the cleanup of the pond itself. So anyway, thank you very much for your support.
I've
I
got you
appreciate it.
beat. My house isn't on Breezy Lake, but I'm at $109,000 more. So-
183.
I do want to,
So this is great because then the money that you're contributing could also go to clean up and maintain your lake as well.
We get no extra money. I wish we did.
It's both.
Still the
it's
same
both a
pie,
benefit-
just different
it's both a
people pay
benefit
different
net
amounts.
neutral.
Yeah.
thank you very much for your
Thank you.
continued efforts. You've got quite an audience on Zoom tonight and here in council chambers. For anyone who's an enthusiast or cares about the environment here in Coventry, what's the best way someone could get in touch with the group if they wanted to volunteer?
breezylake.com.
All right, just wanted to let you get that plug in.
Yep, that's good. We got the junior high school coming down on the 5th of May. They're doing a little field trip down there, and we present to the junior high school and the high school on a pretty regular basis. So breezylake.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pendergast, and I do appreciate everything that you and your organization do for Breezy Lake. All that money that you raise goes right back into that lake. So I really appreciate everything you do.
Any other members of the public here in council chambers, public comment on undocketed items? And on Zoom, any members of the public, undocketed items? Going once, twice, 3 times. Public comments now closed. Moving on to introduction of new matters before the council. Item A, 2023 Coventry School Construction Bond Act from Taft and McSally. We have this in our packets, starting at page 73 to 80. Mr. Ferrara gave us an updated packet before the start of the meeting as well. With consideration of this tonight, if the council chooses to approve this, we do have to make certain decisions, and those are highlighted in the draft. On page 1, we need to make a decision regarding the reimbursement ratio. And what that basically means is if you're committing to the full scope of the project as it's been outlined so far by the school building committee, where you're doing the newer and fewer school construction, or if you don't think that that would be met or funded, you would go for the 49.2. Yeah, obviously can't make that decision for us. Similar point on page 2. Same thing. We have to make the decision there. Same thing on page 5. Basically, the call out there is if whether or not this council would authorize the use of bond premiums to cover overages, as I understand it. And then also there's a call out on page 7 of the date of the referendum. Obviously, that's been the tentative date so far. And then again on page 8, another distinction of the percentage to move forward with. So to get discussion rolling, do I have a motion to approve and send to the General Assembly the bond act for Coventry school construction?
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second. At this time, we'll entertain a motion for the percentage throughout in terms of reimbursement. Councilman Pasqua.
Well, I'll make a motion really for discussion on the 49.2.
I'll second it.
A motion from Councilman Pasqua, second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion, Councilman Pasqua.
While I want to check off all the boxes to get the 69.2%, I'm just not sure that we're going to be able to afford a project that would support the 69.2%. So I'm hesitant to go for the 49.2, but I think based on the current fiscal situation, we probably need to aim a little bit lower on this and still get a lot of things done that we need to do and make a big impact on the schools and get some good state reimbursement. But I think that the 49.2 might be a more feasible thing for us just because the project will cost less to do.
Councilmember Shockley.
Are these really our only two options for percentages? Because the way we get from 49.2 to 69.2 isn't with a 20% increase. It's with multiple 5% increases.
Sure. So I think, but I think the bulk of the 69.2% comes from having the newer and fewer piece of it. So basically with the council vote today to say the 49.2%, you're basically saying you're not interested in construction of the consolidated school. And you're telling the school building committee that you want to only do any projects that are not that consolidated school.
Even though it says not less than. The way the wording in is, it seems to me, like if I say not less than 49.2, I could still do the full project. I could get to 69.2.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ferrara, you seem itching to.
If I may, David Ferrara, bond counsel. We, both the financial advisor and I, thought that while you're at PFM, as said to you at the last meeting, that 69.2 may well be achievable, but as a matter of asking the public not less than 69.2, you may be making a presumption that the stars line up exactly perfectly. And one of them was one of the 5%. And in fact, all the 20% bonuses, all four of them require beginning construction by December 30th, 2023. As the legislation currently stands, there may be a 6-month extension proposed. It is proposed in the Senate. It's held in committee. So it would be, in the land of bonds, you want to be black or white. There can't be any gray area. So if you tell the public only if it's not less than 69%, and then one of those things falls out of place, you're at zero.
That makes
No
sense.
bonds.
Yep.
So the council, remind the council that you are always in absolute control, even after the voters vote, as to any project, any issuance of bonds, any spending of money, and you're going to have continued involvement after the October 4th vote. I just don't, again, are feeling, myself and the financial advisor, that 69% may be achievable, but right today, I can't tell you if you have a good shot, a bad shot, or no shot at it. So if you, at the time you issue the bonds, you will have issue the bonds and spend the money. The council will have a better feeling of what it is. 49% is this town's minimum reimbursement rate under current law. So that's the nature of that.
But I think our question is there a negative to doing 49.2?
No, I think it's just being transparent.
It's being conservative and transparent, and the school committee intends to present all these other possibilities that may be achievable, and they may well be achievable. But I think that if you put 69 and we missed one contract, you're at zero.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Going back to your previous comment, if we want to send a message to the school building committee, I don't think it's with the percentages. I think it's with the dollar amount. And I'm not comfortable with the $80 million. And that hasn't even been discussed yet, but that's how I think you would send that message.
Yeah, so just if we could just keep the discussion to the amendment for the percentages for now. So we have a motion and a second on the floor for the 49.2%. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
I'm gonna go to page 5. This is with respect to the council's wishes on use of bond premiums or authorization, therefore. Do I hear a motion to not authorize the use of bond premiums in this bond act?
I want to make the motion to authorize bond premiums.
Second that.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor. Councilor Shockley.
While,
Wait, hold on. Can you just make the formal motion?
yep, motion. I make a motion to authorize the use of bond premiums in this project.
And second from Councilman Pasqua.
Second that.
Discussion, Councilmember Shockley.
I believe that when we had the last meeting, while I learned a lot about bond premiums and don't want to utilize those, I believe it was said that if we take them away as an option, we might not get as good, we might not get as many buyers for our bonds. I feel that was how that was put forward to us. So while I don't want to use bond premiums, I do feel that it was said we'd get more buyers for our bonds if we kept it available as an option.
So maybe it's misstated a bit. This would require, if we sold bonds at a 5% interest rate and got 85 million, we would downsize the issue, giving all the buyers their requested premium, but the net proceeds available for construction would still be 80 million as opposed to 85 million. So this would only require that bond premium used for the project be required to reduce the principal amount of bonds. That's what actually happens in most towns, but it's not required. So that, to clarify, it would not allow the use of bond premium to exceed $80 million of, it wouldn't allow the excess to be used for additional project costs. It could be used for the cost of issuing the bonds, things like that. But it's in other words, you wouldn't be telling the voters we have $80 million of projects, and when there's a cost overrun, oh, we'll just sell bonds at a premium, we'll get $85 million.
Right,
It's,
because
again,
the
it's a transparency issue.
because the voter ends up paying that back.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So
so that's all it would do. It would require, you can have premium, you can always have premium. We need to have premium.
Gotcha.
In some markets to issue the bonds, because that is required for 1,000 different reasons. But it just means that we will, as did North Kingstown, we went from, let's just say 36 million of bonds to 34 because we got 4 million of premium. We still came away with 36 million for the project. Those are rough numbers. That's not
Sure.
representative for the project. So that's all it's saying. It's not, will not allow, council does not want premium to be used to end run the limit
That-
on project.
That's what I'm talking about.
okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure we weren't taking
No, I want you
our
to understand that
buyers
it's
away.
very-
So that was a very good explanation. I
don't want it
appreciate
to
that.
Be used as for a blank check.
Yeah,
For the
No,
project.
I agree.
That's my point.
Then I withdraw my amendment.
All right, so with that, do I hear a motion to regarding bond premiums from the council? We have to articulate that. Or just leave it as it's written.
Accept the addition.
Just
of that
accept the language.
Accept the fine.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept the language as written with respect to bond premiums on page 5?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilman Pasqua. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And finally, just looking for a motion to accept the tentative referendum date of October 3rd, 2023 in the page 7 of the Bond Act.
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Councilmember Shockley,
Second.
second from Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yep.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
We're now out to the full Bond Act as amended discussion. Councilmember Shockley.
You brought up earlier that by making certain decisions tonight, we're stating whether or not we would be interested in the larger project. And while I'm not sure that we come from the same direction, I would like to discuss the bond amount. Because of the environment we're in, if we're deciding we want to move forward with consolidating the schools, I'm not sure if everyone feels comfortable with the 80 million as enough.
Further discussion? Sorry, Solicitor Angel.
If I may, Madam President. As you recall from past discussion, three things really. The issuance of the bonds, you're seeking voter approval. That doesn't mean you're obligated to spend the money. We all know that. With respect to a project that costs more, how do we manage that? When we heard from bond counsel the last time in the discussion among the council members, there needs to be a priority set as to what portions of the project are done first. If you start the newer and fewer as your first project, that may well eat up the entire 80 and then some, depending upon inflation, cost overruns, whatever, who knows. And then you lose control over the remaining smaller projects, or you do the smaller projects up front and you see what's left. In any event, it was also recommended to the council, and I know in working with the town manager, we're going at the appropriate time to engage a construction consultant to be employed by the council in the executive to provide the council with with information to inform its decision-making about cost overruns, if any, regardless. But it's a matter of ordering the priorities, if you will, of what's been proposed. You can certainly tell the schools, do the smaller stuff first and let's see where we stand. And that's what triggers the floor, as Mr. Ferrara alluded to. If that's all that gets done, then your reimbursement most likely is the 49%.
I agree. And I definitely have had a lot of constituents who are looking to get the maximum of that reimbursement. The reason we're doing this now is to get more of a reimbursement than we would normally get. So to move forward with multiple projects at the same rate we would have gotten anytime we went out to bond for this might change in different years because of income levels. But if our thought is really to try to get the larger project completed, I don't know if we're moving forward at the right amount. I wouldn't want to, kind of going with what Mr. Angel just said, we don't have to spend what we have as our ability to bond for. But if we get to a place in the project and we don't have the money to finish it, that's just a very noticeable failure where we started putting a lot of money into something that never got finished. And I would not want that to happen. And I wouldn't want to do nothing larger at this point and lose out on 20%, a full 20% of reimbursements. So I really am just looking for a discussion from the council. If we want to give the residents of the community the opportunity to vote, not just on a bond, but on the larger project, are we asking for a large enough amount as our capacity? Because I think they're voting on more than $80 million. They're voting on a project.
Vice President LeBlanc.
A couple of comments, if I may. So first, Mr. Angel had mentioned that, yes, this is potentially going in front of the voters, but we're not obligated to spend it. I don't feel that way because I feel like if it goes in front of the voters, then, and they voted yes, I feel like we have to go forward with this project. That's just my opinion. That's fine. The schools are already getting 70% of our budget. Now we're talking about an 80 million or more dollar school building project. I feel like we're putting all of our eggs in one department or basket, however you want to call it. I think this is way too much money, personally. While I know the schools need repairs, I think we can do it in a different fashion. I still have not received an answer on how the first year, once principal and interest is going in our budget, how we're going to afford any type of town side increase or school side increase on that budget. Because we've always been told, even this year, we can't afford a level funded budget. This is without this very large principal and interest that would be due. So I need an answer before I can even vote on this personally. We struggle to pass a $2 million increase in our budget year to year. This is such a large project. Again, I'm against this large project.
Councilmember Shockley.
As I did the last time this project came up, I'd like to point out, we're not voting for the project. We're voting on whether or not we want to put it to the community, whether they want the project. So our vote does not make this project happen. Our vote gives the community the opportunity to decide, is this how we want to allocate our bonding capacity? Is towards, in this case, consolidating our elementary schools so that we need one roof, one parking lot. I do think that I still have members of the community asking me about the middle school project, not realizing that it had died. And I would like to put a project forth to the community. I'd like to put this project forth to the community. But like I said, my concern is I'm giving the community a project that possibly I'm not wisely funding for.
Vice President LeBlanc.
People want nice things in life, right? Do I want a new school for this town? Of course. Can I just go and vote on a new project? Sure. Can the town afford it? I don't think they're going knowing full well what the financial position of this town is. Most people don't even realize that our liabilities exceed our assets by over $100 million currently. So yes, it's nice to have nice things, but can you afford it? And that's what I'm talking about. This is, you're voting in a silo. You're voting on one project, not realizing that maybe the fire district's going to need some money. Maybe the police are going to need some money. Maybe other rec is going to need some money. There's so many more departments in this town than just the school. They're already getting 70% of our budget. Then they're going to get the majority of our line of credit. That's why I'm against it.
I would like to hear from other council members.
Mr. Pasqua? Councilman Pasqua?
I share some of these same concerns that I want to take advantage of this program with the state. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And we're looking at probably $17 million in repairs in our schools in the next 4 to 5 years that we may have to come up with short-term money, which could look like the same type of increase if we had a bond that was investing in the school system. I really need to understand where we are financially before I can with good conscience put this forward to the people. Like I said, I've toyed with the idea of maybe a reduced program, something a little different, a reduced type of plan, maybe improvements to the schools that we have and not so much newer and fewer. Not because I don't think it's better, just because the financial position we're in, it might make it difficult. But I do recognize that we're just asking the General Assembly for permission to do this in the future. So I would support moving this forward to the General Assembly because it's going to give us time to do the homework and the research that we need to do to understand our position, and we can accept a plan in the future after we do some more homework on this. So I agree with you, Councilman LeBlanc. There's some deep concern here as far as affordability and just maxing out our credit card, for lack of better terms. But I think I want to keep my options open, and so I'm gonna support this.
Thank you. I'd like to make a few comments if I may. I struggle with this, especially as someone who's serving as currently school building committee chair. I've really given a lot of time to this, and especially as someone who voted no on the last project. I've made an effort, concerted effort to be more involved, be part of the solution, and recognize the realities of our school buildings. I share some of the same concerns that the councilman to my right have, in terms of the fact that the sticker shock from assessments, the anticipated tax levy we have this year, and then not to mention what the taxpayers will feel when this debt service is added, should the bond pass the voters. And we've also talked about previously the issues we've seen with other projects in the insane cost overruns that couldn't be predicted. My concern there, and I know that Councilmember Shockley has echoed this, is that if we're trying to peel back the scope of the newer and fewer, the consolidated school project, we're not going to end up with the school that we want, but a Frankenstein of a building. And now we've spent all this money and it's not even the building we want. I have major concerns about interest rates, about the inflation and the cost of construction at this point. So what I would ask of the council this evening is the opportunity to just that put this forward to the General Assembly for authorization. And I want us to have I want this council to come to a school building committee meeting, the next one, and we need to have a serious conversation as a group about dialing this back to be something that we can stomach, or at least get something done. I really do think that while the economic market isn't ideal, I do think that we can salvage something from this effort so far to at least get something done. Maybe it's not 80 million, maybe it's not 60 million, maybe it's 35, 40 million worth of work. I don't know, but I see this as a different group for the school building committee. I don't think it's a zero-sum game of my project or no project at all. I think this group just wants to see some improvement done to our school building. So I'm asking my colleagues tonight to, as Councilman Pasqua pointed out, afford the option to continue the work and to now have the tough conversations with the school department, the school committee, and the school building committee about getting something done in a responsible way, given the financial impacts that we're facing. Councilor Shockley.
No, and I just wanted to point out that it's because of what I've been reading about interest rates and overages that my thought is, if we're going to go with something, if we do want this project, and I came back around to that, if we think this is a project to put forth, then we need to talk about amounts. But if we want to discuss other opportunities or other options, now's the time to do that.
Councilman Pasqua.
So in the previous presentations that we've had, this is really $100 million project. It's not 80. We're only talking about bonding 80. So there's a larger number there because we've qualified for more rebates and money up front to do this, pay-go and so on
Outside
and so
grants.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. So I know that we're looking at 80 million on this, on the legislation, but it's really $100 million project. But I agree with you. We have an opportunity to do something. And like I said, the schools are looking at just a few years ago, and the prices undoubtedly gone higher, but it was like $17 million in repairs to the schools, from the middle school's roof, upgrades needed at Western, the drinking water situation over there. So, I mean, these are things that have to be addressed, and they're only getting worse. And, if we have an opportunity to roll this into something and get 50% back, or 75 or 70% back, I think we really need to consider it for sure.
Just because, and you're right, if you just remove the consolidated school out of it, the projects that are within the realm of the remainder of the project, the 18 million or so, we're talking about new gym floors in the middle school and high school. We're talking about new bleachers. We're talking about upgrades to the weight room. We're talking about upgrades to the science labs, the auditorium, technology throughout the schools. We're talking about the well. We have no clean drinking water out of one of our elementary schools, which is a disgrace. that would make an immediate impact. We're talking about a new building envelope, AKA a roof for the middle school. So even with just those projects completed, aside from a consolidated school, that is something, and that's an impact on our community and our students. Vice President LeBlanc.
So I keep on hearing like 17 million, wells, roofs, technology. Nothing that you guys are talking about is $80 million. So that is my point. You earlier mentioned sending a message to the school building committee. By approving this as is, what message are we sending?
We haven't had the discussion with the school building committee yet, and we haven't considered Black Rock, Hopkins Hill, or Tioga in what requires improvements right now, because we were thinking of building a new school. So I think while if we decided to move forward with something other than the consolidation project, it would be with the intent, we're not going to reach $80 million. But I don't think that decision's been made yet by everybody on the council.
Understood.
I'll just be
my
frank,
point.
I'm not interested in using this as a stiff arm to that committee. That committee hasn't met in a month because they've been waiting to see what happens here. I'd rather have a conversation with them and say, look, the majority of the council strongly feels that we need to dial this back significantly and consider a measure that makes moderate improvements made to each building, or dials back, reconsiders the consolidation piece. We haven't been able to have that conversation yet. And I'm frankly not comfortable in terms of relations and working as a team with stiff arming them by a vote like this tonight. That's just me personally. Vice President LeBlanc.
So why can't we have that discussion and then vote on this?
Because this needs to get in the pipeline to be approved by the General Assembly. I don't know if we waited till the 25th or even into May that this could make it and get approved in time, and then we have no possibility of a bond at all. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ferrara, we're kind of coming up against the timeline in terms of when we can submit this.
I was advised by legislative council that while there is technically no deadline for a city or town bond acts and things of this nature, the sooner the better. But if there may be others, and I'm not telling you that other communities aren't planning to do it about the 25th, and it is all awaiting ride approval at a meeting, I think on the 15th, according to our schedule. So it's not impossible to wait. They always say the sooner the better because they like to get things moving along. But
And even between now and the 25th, I don't think the school building committee can get a meeting together and review a revised project in the next week and a half. And we wouldn't have any new information, in my opinion, by the 25th. But again, that's just my opinion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then we'll go to a vote on the bond act as amended. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
No.
President Lima.
Yes.
So that's 3 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Motion passes.
Mr. Farrar, do you have everything you need now to make sure this gets submitted?
Council President, we will submit the act tomorrow morning or thereabouts with I would need a copy of, the clerk may need to get me a resolution asking that this get a certificate of the vote at some point, that the council asked the General Assembly to pass the act as presented.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
I was just gonna say. Could I have a motion to take the agenda out of order, please?
I'll make the motion.
A motion from Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second it.
second from Councilmember Shockley. I just know that the wastewater presentation is going to be pretty long, and I think that the grant writer piece will be shorter, and that person's here, so I just would like to get them in and out. No further discussion. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Shockley.
Answered it.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Moving on to item C, ratification of grant writer contract, Rosewood Consulting. This is pages 101 to 103 in your packet. Mr. Parrillo, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I wanted to present Lisa Andoja, who is the president of Rosewood Consulting. We're looking to bring in a professional grant writer in order to really take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there right now. It's one thing to write a grant, fill in the blocks and send it in. Lisa takes grants to the next level. Her relationships, her lobbyist activities, all the stuff that she does really takes a grant to the next level, where she has been very successful in numerous communities, including Cranston, to bring in millions of dollars. So the small stipend that she is paid monthly more than covers what she's going to bring into the town. So if I could bring her up and she could identify herself and kind of give us a little background, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Andoja. I reside at 1 Rosewood Drive in North Providence. Madam President, Vice President LeBlanc, well-respected members of the council, Manager Parrillo, Solicitor Angel, it's wonderful to come before you to just have an opportunity to have a conversation all about ABC, all about cash, all about revenue, doing more without the town budget. And I appreciate the opportunity. 20 and a half years ago, I actually founded Rosewood Consulting, and it's completely evolved. Then 20 and a half years ago, I was doing a lot of special events and public relations. It transferred to doing a lot of government relations for nonprofits who really needed the funding. And over the last 15 years, I've been working with a lot of municipalities in Rhode Island and a few nonprofits. And it's to actually pursue very vigorously state and federal funding, and then also funding from private charities such as Champlain, also the Rhode Island Foundation. And it was a great opportunity to just sit in the audience this evening and just listen about the budget and what are some of the items that you actually want to get funding for. It was really interesting to actually hear the assistant town manager talk about the PPL list and initiatives that you want to get funding for. And I actually did a little research and saw the ARPA survey that was done. And so if I may, before I get into funding I've secured, what I have been hearing and where I have received funding for other municipalities is digitizing town infrastructure, town hall, transportation, roads, bridges, sidewalks, water infrastructure, clean water, stormwater runoff is huge, wastewater treatment facility, economic assistance to small businesses, really important. Rhode Island Commerce actually has funding for that. So has Rhode Island Foundation. Not only do you have small businesses, but microcosm businesses, startup businesses that could all get funding right now. DEM offers funding for parks, playgrounds, recreation. I actually saw a splash pad somewhere. They would actually, they have funding coming out, DEM, in late summer for outdoor recreation. It'll be a small grant up to 100,000 and a large grant up to 400,000. Recreation center, broadband internet. Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank actually is the pass-through for the federal infrastructure bill. And in that is broadband internet. And so I would encourage you to think about what you have for town assets. Senior center, the community center, any other areas. You have a lot of working parents that go to the athletic fields to watch their children. You might even have grandparents watching their grandchildren. Other municipalities have actually gotten funding for internet so that they provide it there, right at the field. Seniors, it was really important for seniors. One of the communities I work with is in Cumberland. During COVID, a lot of seniors didn't have Wi-Fi at home, so they couldn't be connected to their primary care doctors. They couldn't get their prescriptions refilled. other critical services for social services. So that became really important, having access for all for the internet. And what the senior center did in Cumberland was even the parking lot. So when the center's closed, seniors can still go there and have access. Libraries, there's funding for libraries. Champlain Foundation loves to fund that. CDS, Congressional Direct Spending, is another avenue. Affordable housing, CDBG loves to fund these kind of projects. Rhode Island Housing, as we know, Secretary Pryor. And then EV charging stations. Charging stations, you may want to identify where you'd like to put it. And I've worked very closely with DEM, with EPA, and Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, Rhode Island Commerce. Just over the last couple of years, I've represented the town of North Providence. In the last 2 years, I got them over $3.2 million. City of Cranston, 2.5 million, and it varies from Rhode Island Commerce to DEM recreation grants. I don't want to be redundant. To Rhode Island Foundation, whatever the grant opportunity is, I will pursue it. I don't care how large or how small. Your priorities become my priorities. So I work with clients to actually first develop what is your list of priorities. And when a grant opportunity becomes available, I'll actually forward it to my direct contact and have a conversation on what are the priorities. When I say I pursue smaller grants, there are grants that Rhode Island Foundation had available during COVID for small businesses, for food insecurity, and for household items. I received funding for that. Town of Cumberland got 3.4 million, and the town of Smithfield got a little over $2 million. And it varies whether it's the police department for equipment. I can share with you that Senator Reed just filed a bipartisan bill for firehouses. So if you actually look at inventory, that's going to be something else that's going to be coming out this year. Roads, CDBG will actually take low to moderate neighborhoods and below poverty, and any streetscape, whether it's lighting, sidewalks, road resurfacing, those could be potential submissions. Are there any, I could go on and on, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. Is there anything I can answer? Yes, Vice President.
Blake.
How many other municipalities in Rhode Island do you do this type of service for?
I have, I'm under agreement with the town of Cumberland, Lincoln, Smithfield, North Providence, Johnston,
It's a good list.
Cranston.
And for how many years?
North
Approximately.
Providence is my largest. It was my first municipal client, and that's been for 15 years. And I think what is really unique is that I have actually created long-term trusted relationships with the key staff members. So I may talk to them about, your wastewater treatment is an issue. DEM had a grant a couple of years in a row. Is that going to be forthcoming? Talking to the EPA.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Councilmember Shockley.
Thank you for coming tonight. Definitely impressive. So is there a number of hours or a number of an amount of time or material promised with the amount that you get per month? It's like a $4,000 a month. You have a lot of clients. So I just wasn't sure if there's a time commitment.
Is there a time commitment? Whatever it takes. I'm available. My clients call me on weekends. I don't track hours. I track results. The return on investments there. All of my clients get over $1 million a year, and I'm proud of it. Providence Water is a client. They're actually considered independent, but they're with the city of Providence for lead pipe remediation. They got $2.2 million last year, and they got $212,000 for cybersecurity. I don't keep track of the time, whatever it takes. Last week, there were 3 grants due at Rhode Island Commerce, Take It Outside, Main Street, and Site Readiness. I worked over 3 weekends.
So I think this is an extremely important role. It's not something I'm trying to discount at all. Do we know what we currently get on an average for grants, or what we got last year or the year before? Kind of how the directors are doing. I know we do apply for grants. Some of these I've heard of because of our town directors. So
I know Mr. Robillard does get a lot for the senior center. I can't speak for other departments are getting. I know they're varied. I know the assistant town manager has applied for some, Mr. McGee applies for some. So I think the important thing here too is to centralize all the grants through Lisa. She keeps track of them. She knows exactly what we're looking for. We get rid of the redundancy and we kind of free up some of the directors to work on projects that are within their scope, as opposed to spending time, hours upon hours, filling out grant applications and so forth.
You're
I see
also
that.
paying her for her relationships.
No,
It's a big difference between, say, one of our department directors just applying because they saw it. And I would imagine Ms. Andosha can reach out to the contact and say, what are you really looking for in this application? Or what types of projects are going to be up at the top of your list for consideration, instead of just taking a shot in the dark?
No, I think that having it be on a consultant basis as opposed to an employee basis is a great idea. As long as we have funding available within I'm guessing the town manager's office is where it would come from. I think it's a great use of resources. And I think with what we'd be spending a year on it, the return would be fantastic.
I think we're still kind of going back and forth where that money would come from, but I think right now, in the initial onset, it'll probably be out of the finance department because we do have a savings there right now, not having those two positions. And then down the road, I'm thinking it could be either recreation or maybe sewer enterprise. And there's going to be a lot of sewer enterprise money coming in through grants, so that might be the appropriate place to draw that salary out of.
Great.
And also, just so everyone knows, Solicitor Angel has looked over the contract, and it's all good to go.
Councilman Pasqua.
So, question, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm really excited about the grant thing. I've been saying forever, we really should have a solid, focused grant person in this town to find other revenue streams. So, question though, do you work with the audits of the grants if any come up? Do you do anything like that, or you just grant acquisition? So any type of like for instance, FEMA grants for AFG, if they audit the process or they want to see what you did during a period of performance or anything, do you assist in any of that, or does that rely solely on the town?
Sure. So I do grant research. I do grant writing. I do compliance reports. I do financial drawdowns. And I was sitting in the audience, and I have to be candid. I was noticing you have the dream team here tonight. You do. You have Mr. Savetti, who I've worked with for 15 years. I've worked with him on audits when it's actually come up and he's needed additional information on a grant. I never say something is not within my scope of services because I love what I do. It's a passion. It's really not a job. So I've worked with him. Manager Parrillo, I've worked with for the past 4 years, and Mr. Angel as well. So, you know, whatever the task is or the assignment is, it'll be my pleasure.
The dream team. Did we promise to recruit that?
No, but they're well, no, but they're well respected for having best practices.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. So yeah, thank you very much. And I fully support this. I think this is going to be a great investment for our town. And I'm excited about looking for grants, more grants to supplement our tax levy. We need it.
Any further questions, discussion? Do I hear a motion to approve the ratification of the grant writer contract with Rosewood Consulting LLC?
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
And to direct the town manager to sign it. Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilman Pasqua. Oh, sorry. Motion from Councilman Pasqua, second from Vice President LeBlanc. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you and I promise to over deliver.
Thank you. Manager Parrillo, once this is signed, just for transparency, if we can have this up on the town website in the appropriate location, that'd be appreciated. Moving on to item B, Coventry Wastewater Facilities Plan Update 90% presentation from the team at Fuss and O'Neill. Members of the public, this wastewater plan has been in progress since end of last summer, July. And this presentation is from our consultant, as it's nearing completion at this point. So we welcome them here this evening.
Thank you for having us. Laura Mercolini with Fuss and O'Neill. My colleagues with me tonight are Doug Brzee with Fuss and O'Neill and Dave Fox with Raftelis. Raftelis has performed the cost of service study for us and has run cost model analysis for our 90% facility plan. Want to try to keep it as brief as possible, but also reiterate what we've presented at the open house in the fall. So tonight I'll just walk through the planning area overview. Doug is going to talk about the evaluation that we've gone through, talk about the priority planning areas, the conceptual layouts for sewer extensions in those 5 priority planning areas, the opinions of costs associated with them, and the implementation schedule. And then I will talk about the administrative recommendations, funding sources that we're recommending you consider, and then I'll let Dave talk about the cost of service results. So if you could fit the screen just a little bit more. So there are 31 planning areas on the map, all centered in the eastern portion of town. The 31 planning areas are within 5 different census tracts. 2 of the 5 census tracts have a median household income below that of the states. So we believe that there's an opportunity to gain funding or obtain loan forgiveness for planning areas within those census tracts. Out of the 31 planning areas, there are only 5 that we're recommending for sewer extensions within the next 20 years. So this is a very long-term project that we're recommending. There are 9,000 parcels roughly within those 31 planning areas. And in those 5 projects that we're recommending in the next 20 years, there are about 2,100 parcels. So we're talking about 2,100 out of the 9,000 over 20 years. Next slide, please. So I'll let Doug come up and talk about the evaluation that we've conducted.
Good evening. As Laura mentioned, my name is Doug Brzee, and I've been assisting with the wastewater facility plan on the Fuss and O'Neill side. To start, I'm going to talk about the matrix evaluation that we did relative to the 31 planning areas that Laura just mentioned. The purpose of the matrix evaluation was to evaluate and prioritize the planning areas for potential sewer extensions. There were 4 main pieces of criteria that we took into account when doing the evaluation. The first one was environmental impacts, mainly looking at the planning area's proximity to existing water bodies as well as wetlands. We also took into account affordability. Again, we looked at the census tract median household income for each planning area, understanding that for those that fell within a census tract that had a median household income less than the state average, there was possibility for supplemental funding or loan forgiveness through Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. We also, as part of the affordability, looked at the approximate cost to sewer. This was more of a GIS exercise, looking at the length of road within each planning area. We did a evaluation of the existing topography within each planning area, understanding if there was a need for a pump station, and that would have implications on the project cost. Similarly, we did a GIS desktop analysis to understand where there might be bedrock or outcrops within each planning area, understanding that can have significant implications on project costs. And then lastly, we accounted in for the potential of ARPA funding to help offset some of the project costs for some of the planning areas that we were looking at. The third evaluation criteria was the on-site wastewater treatment system issues reported in the survey. So at the onset of the wastewater facility plan, we circulated approximately 9,000 surveys to the property owners within the 31 planning areas. We received about 1,600 responses, so about an 18% response rate. We took that information and then we're able to take that feedback and evaluate it based on the percentage of reported cesspools within each planning area. Cesspools are no longer a code compliant on-site septic system. We also were able to get a gauge on the age of existing on-site wastewater treatment system, the percentage of any reported repairs or problems that have been identified in the planning areas. And then lastly, we solicited input from the public relative to if they had any concerns about on-site wastewater, whether it be related to their own system or neighboring systems. And then lastly, the fourth item of criteria was site suitability for continued use of on-site wastewater treatment. Again, this was more of a desktop GIS analysis that took into account the median lot size, understanding that smaller lots, it's more difficult for them to maintain a code compliant septic system. We looked at parcel density within each planning area. And then lastly, we looked at soil suitability for continued on-site wastewater treatment, which was basically looking at a data layer that came from Rhode Island GIS public website to perform that evaluation. So relative to once that evaluation was complete, the results indicated that planning area 9 was the top of the priority. And I will on the next slide give a graphical representation of where that is, but that's in the southwest corner. It is adjacent to Ty Oak Lake. Factors that led to this being one of the leading planning areas for potential sewer extension was the potential for ARPA funding, understanding that this is one of the projects being considered. It's obviously adjacent to Ty Oak Lake, which has had a history of water quality issues. There was also a higher percentage of cesspools within this area. And then lastly, there's actually some existing dry sewer infrastructure that's already in place that was installed previously with the intention of serving this planning area. And then another planning area that ranked towards the top of the list was planning area 8. This is in close proximity to planning area 9. So an effort to generate more revenue with the sewer extensions. Those two have been kind of ranked towards the top of the priority list for sewer extension. The other planning areas were planning areas 2 and 1. These were on the western edge of the overall study area that we looked at. Factors that led to the high ranking here was again a high reported presence of cesspools, as well as being adjacent to Johnson Pond. And then lastly, the third planning area which ranked was planning area 12. This is in the northwest corner or northwest to Ty Oak Lake.
Oak Haven plat.
Well,
Yep,
okay,
that's
okay.
the neighborhood. Oak
All right,
Haven.
thank you. And factors that led to that is that there's again nearby existing sewer infrastructure. The planning area itself is located between Washington Street to the north, as well as Ty Oak Ave to the south. It's adjacent to the South Pawtucket River. It's generally made up of high density lots. And again, a higher percentage of cesspools reported in this area.
Question.
Yes.
Vice President Lake.
Do you know the number of homes that are going to be serviced? And I know there's a plot map here, but for planning areas 9 and 8, total number of homes
For
approximately?
9 and 8, we were talking about 600 approximately.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then
300 each.
300 each. Got it. And what about planning areas 2 and 1? You know,
2
by
and
chance?
1, I think was closer to 900.
And the high school's there too, right?
Correct.
Got it. And then and the last one, planning area 12, about approximately, do you remember?
600, I
600.
believe.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Yep. 2,100 between those 5 planning areas roughly. So the figure that we have shown on the screen here is a conceptual layout that we have developed for planning areas 9 and 8. So just to kind of orient yourself, it's Arnold Road that is basically running north-south on the page. This serves as the dividing line between planning area 9, which is located to the east and adjacent to Lake Ty Oak. And then you have planning area 8 to the west of Arnold Road, again, running north-south. So what we have shown here is a hybrid sewer system looking at low pressure sewer, which is outlined in purple. A low pressure sewer system consists of grinder pumps being located at each individual property that then discharges into a smaller diameter line that would be then in the main line and almost travels similar to that of a force main. And then the green outline is shown as the gravity sewer connection. So obviously everything would flow by gravity in those instances. For this layout, flow from the southern corner of planning area 9 would travel in a northern direction up Arnold Road, and then discharge similar, convey to the east, where we have a centralized pump station proposed near Briar Point. Similarly, all the flow from planning area 8 to the west would flow by gravity to the east to that centralized pump station at Briar Point. And then a force main would extend in the northern direction and connect to the existing dry sewer infrastructure that I had alluded to earlier. There's currently an existing dry 6-inch PVC pipe that extends across the causeway that was installed previously, again, with the intention of extending sewers here. And then if you go to the next one, this next figure is the conceptual layout that we have developed for planning area 12. Again, this is located with Washington Street to the north and Tyoke Ave to the south. And this is, I'm sorry, what the neighborhood? Oak Haven neighborhood. So this area is generally and majority is served by gravity sewers with flow going to the north to an existing stub located along Laurel Ave that then connects to the main interceptor on Washington Street. The southeast corner of the planning area is proposed to be sewered by low pressure sewers. Flow from that area would be conveyed to Tyoke Ave, to the west, and connect to an existing gravity manhole that's sited there. And then flow would flow by gravity to the Sandy Bottom pump station, which again was alluded to as one of the central pump stations for the sewer system. And then the next one. This is planning areas 1 and 2. So planning area 1 is located to the north. This is proposed to be serviced by a hybrid of both gravity as well as low pressure sewer. Again, the low pressure is shown in purple with the gravity in green. Flow from planning area, and then you have planning area 2 to the south, which is in the purple shade. That's proposed to be serviced all by low pressure sewer. Flow from planning area 2 would travel in a northern direction and then basically to the east to Reservoir Road, which currently extends kind of on the eastern limits of the planning area running north-south on the page. And then there would be a about 4,000 feet sewer extension in Tyoke Ave to connect to the east to connect to an existing gravity manhole stub that's currently there. So construction cost breakdown, what we have shown here is we've broken down the planning area cost into several categories, if you will. So we have a wastewater infrastructure cost, really taking into account the cost associated with pipes, manholes, any grinder pumps for where it's proposed to be low pressure sewer. We've also accounted for a mill and overlay costs. So the costs depicted here assume a mill and overlay curb to curb restoration for the roadways. That results in your construction subtotal. We have cost accounted for admin, legal, and engineering. And then a 25% contingency is also included in the overall cost to give you the total project costs, which are depicted in the right-hand column there. This is the implementation schedule that we've put together. So generally speaking, we're looking at a time frame of about 3 to 4 years before from design to when a collection system would be put online, when construction would be completed. Precedence in the schedule is given to obviously the upgrades at Woodland Manor as well as Sandy Bottom, which were alluded to earlier during the meeting, as well as planning area 9. Subsequent to that, we have a allotted time for planning area 8, and then planning areas 12, 1, and 2 are obviously further out in terms of projection timeframe wise.
And Doug, knowing the addition of the high school's issue, that would be in planning area 1, 2. So if we find we get the spending for that, we could swap it with 12.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
the high school would be incorporated into planning areas 1 and 2.
Okay.
And just at the bottom of that slide there, we just have the update facility plan. So this is required by RIDEM to maintain the town's eligibility to submit projects on the project priority list requests that, again, were voted on some of the resolutions earlier.
And just to clarify for the council, we don't have to do something this intensive each time. We just have to pay to maintain it essentially.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So the facility plan would be, upgraded as time would go on. So with that, I will hand it over to Laura to talk about some of the administrative recommendations that came out of the facility plan.
Thank you, Doug. So the top one listed here is to update the on-site wastewater management plan. There are thousands of parcels that we're not recommending be sewered anytime soon. And there is, the town does have an on-site wastewater management plan, but it's very outdated. And the town, we're recommending that sewer operations be pulled internal to the town. A lot of people might have concerns over updating their septic system. They may be interested in getting low interest loans for that. And the town could give that, have that opportunity available to folks. So update the on-site wastewater management plan is one recommendation. Pull sewer operations internal to the town. I think you've heard of that earlier tonight. Also, update the sewer ordinance. We're recommending low pressure sewer systems. Because the topography in town undulates quite a bit. You need to get up over humps or ridges in certain areas, but you can flow by gravity, but not everywhere. So low pressure sewers we're recommending in certain areas. And given that the cost of those pieces of equipment, we're recommending that the town procure that equipment and have it installed as part of the overall construction project. And then use the capped $15,000 assessment or less than that to cover that cost. And then the largest message we wanted to bring here tonight is to increase the revenue for capital improvements as the sewer projects get rolled out. So we really need to make sure that the sewer fund is in a healthy position moving forward, and such that Infrastructure Bank and DEM will actually provide the town funding sources moving forward. So next slide. Those funding sources are not limited to this list that I have here. The town has some ARPA funds available to it. We're recommending up to approximately 3 million be earmarked for the Sandy Bottom Woodland Manor pump station improvements, and for planning area 9, the design portion and permitting portion of that project. However, with regard to Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, their action grant program could allow for funding of the Sandy Bottom pump station improvements, because there is a climate resilience concern for that pump station. It's near a waterway. And if we could harden that system, we might be able to pull in some grant money for that. The Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank also has a municipal infrastructure grant program that could be earmarked for the Woodland Manor pump station improvements, as that pump station could allow for future development or future connections. And that comment would hold also for the Sandy Bottom pump station, because planning area 12 would connect to that in the future. There's a congressionally directed spending application that's been placed for the potential extension up to the high school. It's within planning area 2, sorry. And that was for 4.6 million. That was the estimate to just bring that small extension up Reservoir Road. And I think that's it. Oh, and we're recommending SRF loan for the other projects or other planning areas as they're rolled out. Planning area 12 has a median household income below that of the state's So it's possible that that loan could be forgiven at some future point in time. With that, we want to just talk a little bit about the financial background of the sewer fund. And Dave has modeled at least 4 alternatives. And I'll let him talk to you about that.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Fox. I'm a vice president with Raftellus. We are largest firm in the country, predominantly focused on financial related issues and rate related issues for the water and sewer industry. And I lead our New England office out of Natick, Massachusetts, and we are subconsultant to Fuss & O'Neill. Talk a little bit about the situation with the financials of the sewer fund. The sewer fund is in a structural deficit. And what I mean by that is every single year for several years, the sewer fund has not generated enough revenue to meet its full cost obligations annually. It's not a one-time blip. It's every single year. The sewer fund needs to be subsidized by the general fund to keep up with its cost obligations. In 2019, the Office of the Auditor General came in and did a full report on the financial situation of the sewer fund. If you need some light reading, I know it's already a late night, but you can read that before bed tonight. Hopefully it'll put you to sleep, or maybe it'll make you a little angry. I'm not sure yet. Part of that recommendation was to perform a rate study, have an outside firm come in, which was actually my firm. The last time I was presenting to this town council, I think we're in some sort of one of your schools auditoriums.
High school
auditorium. Great. I'm actually level with you now rather than looking up at you as I was last time. And made a recommendation at that point in time to have a significant rate increase. Both of those things did, the recommendation from the Auditor General, as well as my firm's recommendations, things just kept kind of puttering out, and we're still in a poor financial position for the sewer fund. The sewer fund, unfortunately, also has no reserves. So it is customary and best practices for enterprise funds, specifically water and sewer enterprise funds, to maintain adequate reserve fund balance. So everybody in this room should have a savings account. Water and sewer funds are no different. They should have savings accounts for the what ifs, rainy day funds, especially when these a significant portion of their revenues are contingent upon the amount of water that customers are using. As you can imagine, there is significant fluctuations from year to year, predominantly due to weather. So if you have a very cool, wet spring, summer, fall, and consumption declines accordingly, you can see that a lot of volatility in your revenue because of that. And so having enough money in a reserve fund. They're also great for smoothing out rate increases and mitigating rate increases on customers to try to build up the revenue base over time, rather than do what I'm about to tell you, which is requiring a significant upfront rate increase. Another thing I want to point out briefly, and Laura just mentioned this, and there's been some talk of it previously, is eligibility of clean water state revolving fund loans. So getting low interest loans to spread the costs of significant projects and significant dollar amounts over a longer period of time to not overburden ratepayers. If the sewer fund is not brought into a stronger financial position, at least breaking even and meeting its debt service coverage, I have serious concerns of the eligibility of the town of actually getting that SRF funding to pay for these projects going forward. And again, the amount of rate increase necessary to cash finance the projects of the magnitude that Doug just went through are astronomical and not palatable by any degree. And I was talking for another community in Rhode Island a few weeks ago about getting clean water SRF funding, and they said, "Can you certify?" Which they're a consulting engineer, which is legal term, but it basically a rate consultant has to certify for SRF funding that the wastewater fund will meet its debt service obligations and its debt service coverage obligations for 3 full fiscal years thereafter. And right now, I would not be able to do that without the rate increases that we're about to talk about. So we have 4 different kind of alternatives that we're looking out at this point in time. One is with zero fund balance in the sewer fund, and we're not doing any of these facilities plan that Doug and Laura just went through. We're kind of just keeping existing operations. One is assuming existing operations, but we have a $2 million fund balance. And I know there's some discussion coming still to be determined whether or not the sewer fund has any fund balance whatsoever. And then the third and fourth option are no fund balance and $2 million fund balance with the additional infrastructure needs to perform the facilities plan that we just went through. If we go to the next slide, please. I just wanted to drive home the point of, even if we do nothing, so we don't invest in any expansion of the sewer service throughout the town, we have two graphs here, two charts. The one on the left is the annual cash flow. The columns on this chart are the revenue requirements or the costs that need to be incurred to be able to pay for all operating expenses, existing debt service, new debt service in the future. And the line going across is your existing revenue. And as you can see, you are currently not meeting your cost obligations, and that would be maintained in perpetuity out through 2032. And on the right side there, if we, assuming we have zero fund balance in the sewer fund, that would continue to require general fund subsidy in those full amounts out through the next 10 years to be able to support the operations. This is an unsustainable picture for a fund that should be self-sufficient. Go to the next slide, please. Maybe two more slides. Thank you. So if we don't do anything with the facilities plan that Doug and Laura just went through, and we're not expanding service, but we're just kind of keeping the existing operations, even with that, the sewer fund needs a 66% rate increase in 2024 with approximately 1% increases thereafter. Now, I would recommend that, you know, after this 66% rate increase, if this is what gets voted on, I know we're not there yet. It needs to be public hearing, a lot of discussion, but there should be an annual update to this financial plan to monitor how things are changing, customer usage, customer types, customer amounts, cost basis, make sure that things can vary significantly from year to year in the water and sewer industry. And we want to make sure we're keeping on top of that, and we're making rate increase recommendations that are maintaining that financial sufficiency going forward. Now, what does a 66% rate increase mean if that's what we had to do? That's a $235 increase per year for a typical residential customer, or about $19.53 per month more, or about 64 cents per day. Go to the next slide, please. If the sewer fund had a $2 million fund balance, what this would allow is us to kind of phase in that rate increase and not require that 66%, because we have some funds that we can utilize to offset a little bit of a short-term deficit to be able to phase in those rate increases over a number of years rather than have to get there in all one fell swoop. So this would require a 25% rate increase in both 2024 and 2025. So 2 years back to back of 25% rather than 66% with no fund balance, and then about a 1% increase thereafter. Compare that to the prior slide that we just saw. A typical residential customer would then see about an $83.54 increase in their total annual bill, $6.96 per month, or about 23 cents per day under that 25% increase in 2024. The next slide, please. PC's not updating, that's fine. With the facilities plan and the necessary projects associated with that for all the different planning areas, again, that Laura and Doug just went through, this would require a 66% rate increase, very similar to the status quo, just to get the sewer fund in a strong financial position and remedy the structural deficit that it's in. And then would require another 20% increase in fiscal year 2025 to start increasing the revenue base necessary to start paying for some of these projects. Again, this is all contingent upon us having these rate increases such that we can get SRF funding and some of these other funding obligations, and then a 1% increase thereafter in 2026 and beyond. A 35% rate increase, just to put this into dollars for you, would be about $113 increase on an average residential customer, or about $9.41 per month, or 31 cents per day. And finally, if I haven't bored you enough with all these numbers, if we assume the facilities plan and all the necessary projects to bring sewer service to the planning areas, but we're starting with a $2 million beginning fund balance, that would require two 35% rate increases in 2024 and 2025, with 1% thereafter, and the annual, monthly, and dollar amounts are exactly the same that I just quoted with the prior increase.
Hey, Dave, I just wanted to make sure that these rate increases are to the sewer users and not to general public.
That is correct. These are for customers connected to the sewer system. It would increase their rates.
Okay.
Yes.
You just use your mic.
Sorry, how many are there? How many customers are there currently on the system?
It's about 700, I think, about 700 people connected. So
Yeah.
you have less than 10% of the people in the planning areas we're talking about with sewer service.
Was that all you had before I go to members of the council, or is there anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you appreciate it.
Thanks. Members of the council, Councilmember Shockley.
First, can I ask where we got $2 million from? Like why that was used?
So we had been given a $6 million number last year, and that was not correct. So we understand now that the sewer fund has no money in it. However, there may be a $2 million influx from a development project from past lives.
Okay.
And we would recommend it go that 2 million. If that comes in, we would recommend that go into the sewer fund.
Gotcha.
Sewer enterprise fund.
Can I also ask, so I noticed that when we add the projects, our fund balance starts to rise.
Yes.
So it's because the more people are hooked up and more people are paying in. And then I guess my question becomes, what do we want our fund balance to be?
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that. I went too quickly through my slides. So 2 great questions. Yes, the fund balance is starting to rise, and the reason for that is new connections on the system and new sewer flows. And we're also building that fund balance up to mitigate rate increases over the latter 10 years of the forecast, where we're still having sewer connection projects and funds necessary to accomplish those projects. And so we're trying to smooth out those rate increases as much as possible. There is no industry best practice for what should be maintained in a reserve fund balance, but I think a great position to be in would be about 365 days of operating expenses, or a full year of operating expenses sitting in a reserve fund. And the reason why that would be my recommendation is because the sewer fund has been in a poor financial position, and we want to ensure that we don't allow that to happen again. We're already talking about a potentially significant rate increase up front, and the better we can do, the more we can do to potentially mitigate sharp fluctuations in rate increases going forward. That would be fantastic. And the third point is, with us bringing on new debt to pay for all these new capital projects, it'd be, I think, financially prudent of the town to have a little bit more in a fund balance to be able to manage that debt well, and not have to, again, have an artificially high rate increase in any year to meet debt service coverage.
Vice President LeBlanc.
So this is definitely germane to this discussion. So tonight we have not only approved about $8.4 million going to the priority list. This council knows that we have road repaving estimate of over 100 million. We have trash and recycling truck issues. We now just found out that we have a structural deficit, which I've known for, 7 years, for our sewer fund. And if you go to page 90 of 103 and you add up the total project costs of what's being presented tonight, that's $145 million. So this goes back to our previous vote, which I won't bring up, but if we put all of our eggs in that one project, how are we going to fund all these other projects? I appreciate the presentation tonight, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What I'd like to know next is, this is considered the 90% complete plan presentation. So what are the next steps from here?
So the next steps that we will be taking is, well, the very next step we're going to be taking is to finalize the document itself, transmit that to the town and to Rhode Island DEM. Alex Pinto is our point of contact there, and he's told us that he'll review it as soon as possible. He's already reviewed the 60% plan. And then when DEM approves that, we can start to pursue the projects within the context of the plan. In 5 years from now, if we need to make adjustments, we can with a facility plan update.
Okay, so what is the step in which this would be back before the council, I assume, for our approval? Or ratification, rather? So what are you thinking timeline wise?
I think it will take, I would think it will take DEM about a month to turn it around. If I had to guess.
Previous discussions on SMART with.
So we won't see this probably until June.
That's probably safe. That's probably safe.
Okay,
Yeah.
just wanted to have it
Sure.
on the radar to plan
Sure.
accordingly. Further questions, discussion by members of the council? Great, thank you. I don't think we need any votes tonight. No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
If anything, just the motion to receive and send it on the record.
I don't think we need to, do we? Yeah, I don't think we need to. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for being patient. We'll now move on to executive or closed session items. Can I hear a motion to go into executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, litigation involving Social Holdings LLC in the town of Coventry, and CA numbers KC 2020-0769.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion from Councilman Pasqua, second from Vice President LeBlanc. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we'll now go into executive session. Thank you. Can I have a motion to come out of executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley,
Second.
second by Vice President LeBlanc. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Can I have a motion to seal the minutes of executive session?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Members of the public, the council met in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, relitigation involving social holdings LLC in the town of Coventry in CA number KC 2020-0769. Discussion was had, no votes were taken. Can I have a motion to adjourn at 10:39 PM?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President
I'll
LeBlanc,
second it.
second by Councilmember Shockley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.